Good evening. I would like to call the Select Board meeting for Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 to order. First, I will introduce the board. On my right is Ann Sermon.
Good evening.
Molly Cowan, who is our vice chair. My name is Kathy Corson. I'm the chair. Nico Papankostanis is our clerk.
Good evening.
Julie Gilman, select board member.
Good evening.
Rustine is our town manager, and Joanna Bartel is our recording secretary. So tonight, first we would take public comment. Since there's no one in the audience, I don't think there's any public comment. I'm sorry, there's no citizens in the Exeter citizens. We do have our Public Works Director, but she doesn't have any comments. Not, then we do not have any recognitions or so we'll move on to the approval of minutes for February 3rd, 2020. Does anybody have any changes at all or amendments to the minutes?
If not, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. If that's okay with the rest of the board, to move approval of the Select Board meeting minutes from Monday, February 3rd, 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. We do not have any appointments, but we can move on to discussion and action items, and we will begin by, Julie had suggested, and I think this is great, suggested last meeting that Jennifer Perry comes in and talks to us about recycling, because we can all learn what is and isn't recyclable, and we can see what our mistakes are and where we can add to our recycling too. So thank you. Take it away, Jennifer.
Great. Well, I'm always happy to talk about recycling. It's a very important process. It's an important part of what we do at Public Works, and there is a lot of room for improvement. So thank you for inviting me here tonight. I'd like to stress several points, and you'll hear me repeat things a few times as I go through this. And to the viewing public, I did provide the board with the information that we have on our town website on the Public Works page under recycling. We have a lot of great resources available, and those are in your packets tonight. If people look at the packets, they'll see this. But there are basically 3 rules to recycling. You recycle bottles, cans, and paper. That's the big target, bottles, cans, and paper. You have to keep the items dry and clean. So no food waste particles in the glass, no bottles with water. Don't put your newspapers out when it's raining. Dry and clean. And the 3rd rule, no plastic bags. That means no grocery bags from the store, no plastic liner that you might use to keep your recycling bin clean. None of that is allowed. And you'll see later why that's so important. But those are the 3 basic rules of recycling. Unfortunately, there's a lot of what I call wish cycling that goes on, where people want to do the right thing and they think it's best if they include something, but they're not really sure if it's recyclable. We'd actually ask people to do just the opposite. If you don't know that it's recyclable, do not put it in your blue bin, put it in your trash. We have what's called single stream recycling here in Exeter, where everything that is recyclable or that can be put in your curbside recycling goes into one bin. We have the 14-gallon toters and the larger 64-gallon carts. Everything that can go in there, again, clean and dry, and that's why we prefer the carts, because they have a cover that keep the materials dry. Steel, tin, and aluminum cans, plastic bottles, and containers like tubs, jugs, jars, only in plastic that is number 1, 2, and 5. It used to be years ago that you could put in anything between 1 and 7 that had that Mobius, the triangle symbol with the number inside. Now it's only containers, again, I'm stressing containers, with 1, 2, and 5. The other things that are included in your single stream cycling would be paper, paperboard, cardboard boxes, and corrugated cardboard. The last are glass bottles and jars. So that's a fairly small group if you think about it. About 50% of the recycling is paper product. Metal is only 3%, plastic's about 8%, glass is maybe 12%, and there's a lot of other stuff that gets in there that's considered contaminant. And that's a big, big problem for us in the recycling industry. So another one of our mottos is recycle right, recycle often, but it's not recycle first, okay? It goes back to that idea. If you don't know it's recyclable, put it in your waste. All of the materials that are collected here in our curbside recycling program with Waste Management goes to their materials recovery facility. That's an MRF or MRF for short. You hear that term a lot, a MRF. And it's a very heavy industry type of facility. And I'm going to show you a video in just a couple of minutes, and you'll again understand why there's a lot of limitations on what can be put in the recycling bin. The most common contaminants, and again, this is in the packet tonight, are plastic bags. That's the biggest no-no. They get tangled in the equipment and they shut it down almost instantaneously. Foods and liquids, electronics, cables, wires, cell phones, textiles, bedding, rugs, carpeting, none of that is recyclable. We do have containers at the transfer station. If people have clothes that they want to repurpose, there are specific containers for that at the transfer station, but they do, clothes, carpeting pieces do not, textiles do not go in your recycle bin. Probably one of the worst offenders are holiday lights, rubber hoses. I don't know why anybody would think a rubber hose goes in, but they do. People they think they're doing the right thing, but they are not doing the right thing. People need to educate themselves on what is recyclable. Plastic film, plastic sheeting, packaging, plastic bags. Again, none of that can be in your recycling. Paper napkins, paper plates, compostable forks, utensils, not recyclable. Tissues, paper towels, not recyclable. They may be compostable if you have a really good compost program or you have a really good environment in your compost pile to do it, but they are not recyclable. Shredded paper, not recyclable. And please don't put it in a plastic bag. Again, it is so cut up so fine, it doesn't provide any value to the paper industry. Styrofoam, polystyrene foam, not recyclable. Tires, auto parts, metal, scrap metal, not recyclable. Hangers, one of the biggest offenders, not recyclable. Concrete, wood, construction, demolition debris, not recyclable. And I'm sorry if I keep saying this, but if somebody cues in the middle, I want them to hear that. Medical waste, needles, not recyclable. And I guess one of the last pieces, I use this mantra at home: when in doubt, throw it out. You know, try and take control of that desire to do the right thing and put everything in your recycle bin and rechannel it and do it right. Recycle right, but when in doubt, throw it out. And with that, I would like to cue up the video. It's just 2 minutes.
I've been driving for waste management for 25 years. This is Christmas tree, propane, and plastics bag. It's not recyclable.
Only bottles, cans, paper, and cardboard go in the recycle bin. Some recycling programs have over 25% contamination. We spend too much time sorting through contamination and not enough time sorting through good material to help the environment.
The oddest thing I'd have seen was a skinned deer.
I saw a badger dead with his eyes open, and it terrified me. I thought it was gonna wake up, so I didn't touch that one.
The most common thing that I would see contaminate the line would be Christmas lights.
Water hoses that stop the stars from spinning around. And anytime we get jammed, the whole system shut down. Right now, as you can see, everything is shut down because we have to clean the machines.
There's a lot of plastic bags that we get through the system. Grocery bags, bags filled with leaves, that's also get caught up in the screens.
Screen cleaning is when we go inside the screen and we take out the unwanted material, old clothing, old shoes, metal material.
But when we go inside the screens, you might have a pole sticking out the shaft, and we have to pry it out. Or we might have a cord that's wrapped around 3 shafts, or ropes, or chains, and we have to use the tools to get those things out. The tools we have is a hook knife, some wire cutters, and some pliers.
6 times a day, we stop the machines to clean for contamination.
Well, it would probably take us up to 2 hours to clean the screen out when recycling is not done properly.
We try to clean the screen 100% so it can run smooth as possible without causing any jam.
Now that I work here at Waste Management, I tell my friend that recycling is really important. If more people would recycle right, we could process more recycling a day.
So I think that video gives people a better understanding of what a MRF does. And because you have so many moving parts, you just have to keep things to what only should be recycled. The safety concerns for the workers there are huge. I can't even imagine climbing in there to do some of those removals, and things are under pressure and all of a sudden you free it up. And that material that does get in there that's contaminated winds up going to the solid waste facility anyway. So it's really not helping at all. And it's devaluing the commodity of the recycling market. So that's important to try and keep clean. I think you all know that we have a curbside recycling program with Waste Management. We're in a 5-year contract with them. We're just entering our 3rd year. There is a 3-year extension if it's mutually beneficial to both Waste Management and the town. And currently, our tipping fees are $121 per ton for recycling. You add the transportation fees onto that of $24,000 a month, and our recycling costs are approximately $40,000 a month. That's a lot of money, $480,000 a year. That's 48% of our solid waste and recycling contract with Waste Management. So recycling is not free. There is a cost for it. And a lot of people do ask the question, well, as these tipping fees have gone up, and they are starting to recover a little bit. They've flattened off the last couple of months because domestic markets are starting to open up. Historically, 3-4 years ago, almost 20 to anywhere from 20 to 40% of our recycling was going offshore to China. But domestic markets are reopening because it needs to stay here because of our contamination. I think we'll see those prices come down, but I don't think they'll ever go back to where they were. They're still gonna be high. Is it worth it? Well, that's a tough question that I think everybody needs to keep in front of them. But the reality is that our capacity for solid waste in landfills is declining. I've seen projections for the state of New Hampshire that have capacity in our landfills only to the year 2035. That's only 15 years away. It sounds really far when you say 2035, but it isn't that far away. And so recycling does help us to avoid some of that early capacity uptake. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions, or if people want to know what some alternatives are, I'd love to talk recycling with you. So I'll do my best. This is the rapid fire round on trivia for recycling.
I have one question. As far as, I was just in Florida and they don't recycle glass, and I know you had mentioned that, you know, should we look into not recycling glass because it is expensive? Why is that?
It's because glass is a very heavy component of recycling. If you think about it, it's probably the heaviest component, even though volume-wise it's small. And again, as it breaks in the process, it becomes a bit of a contaminant itself. If it breaks before it gets to the crusher part of a MRF, it can get in the paper. Again, it's a contaminant in the other pieces of recycling. We were told, we haven't asked the question in a year and a half, but we did inquire of Waste Management if we could remove glass from our stream, what would that do to our tipping fees? And they would go down. I can't say at this point what they would be because the numbers have changed quite a bit. But you then have to decide what you do with that glass. Do you put it into your solid waste, your blue bags for collection, which is what most people would do? Most people aren't going to take their glass to the transfer station. But we could establish a crushing operation at the transfer station. There are other places that do that, and they can use that material in road base and as fill in other locations. But it's a question of what do you do with that material? Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of costs, kind of the unintended consequential costs of what are you going to do? Now you've got people driving all over town with part of their curbside collection system. There's a lot of fuel and wasted money going there. So you don't really want to decentralize a piece that's been centralized.
Okay. Thank you. Ann?
Well, first, thank you so much. This is great. And I know my household is guilty of some of the, I think the shredding thing was a big misnomer. I know that's what we were doing. But how do we get this message out? This is great, but I mean, I don't want to send you around on a road show to the schools or to other, but I mean, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what goes in and what doesn't. And this would be great to get out, because that's going to be, to me, the only way we'll really get that fixed, what you just showed us in the video, with these poor people getting everything getting stuck there. But and I'm sure you did this before. I'm sure you did this a long time ago. But I mean, if there's any way we can really help get that word out, whether it's the schools or just through the service clubs or whatever, chamber, anything, that I think would really help, because a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know communications are always one of our biggest challenges, and we have great information on the website, but people have to go looking for it. And we do put out reminders on Facebook, but we probably need to have a more targeted campaign, and I'd be happy to work with, where did Bob Glowacki go? But he just was in and out. But I know, they do a great job of producing, I don't want to call them commercials, but infomercials and videos that we could work with. And, we probably do need to work with the schools. Like you said, the students are very enthusiastic about recycling right, and they're the ones that
will get it right in the household, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I think to Ms. Sermon's point, if we could do something like this video, or maybe have you do a quick 5-minute, 10-minute thing like you did here and incorporate that video on Channel 22, but then maybe also post it on the Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's possible, but I think people would watch, especially on Facebook. I think the social media people would watch.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about leveraging resources to try to do sort of like a monthly recycling reminder, where maybe we take one particular piece of this and we do more with it in just like a little 30 to 45 second blurb. I know when we talk through this, and a lot of people are surprised, myself included, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the clamshell packaging piece, where you buy strawberries or blueberries in a plastic that a lot of times looks very clear and easily recyclable, and it's actually a no on the list. And I think part of the challenge is that people don't want to believe that these things aren't actually recyclable, but those are the facts. And so we could do more of that, and hopefully trying to keep getting the word out as we can. Another one was the single-serve hot beverage cups, which a lot of people, myself included, think of as being paper. And but if they're hot paper cups and they have plastic or wax coating that doesn't break down, then they're not recyclable. So, and we've also had the pizza box conversation a few different times, which has led at home to sort of separating the pizza box into two, and trying to get the clean part through the recycling piece of the action, because it actually is pretty thick cardboard. So, but I think the jury's out on that, whether that's okay to do.
If it's clean, if there isn't any food contamination, no oil, no cheese, it can be recycled. But if there's oily splotches on it, no, it can't be recycled. It needs to go in the garbage.
Do you have, so this thing that we have in our packet is really helpful, but is there like a PowerPoint or something that goes along with maybe the information that you presented tonight, plus this video, plus like how to answer really simple questions? Because I know I would volunteer and give this presentation.
There is not a PowerPoint at this point. Not that we couldn't create one, but no.
I wonder, I mean, that would be maybe a communications committee thing. And I'm also reminded of remember that My Exeter, getting our town to win the whatever.
Oh, yeah.
No, but like winning the small town
thing, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I mean, I think that there was so much cohesion, and this isn't a controversial issue, right? And so, it would, not yet, right, I'm sure.
We haven't gotten hold of it yet.
We have, right, that's right. Let's not even talk about taking out glass from this recycling stream. But, I mean, I just think that there would be some, interest in doing it well, or doing it better than Brentwood, or, like doing it,
Like a healthy, fitness thing where.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with you. If we tell our kids this, they are the police and enforcement mechanism for sure in my home.
Absolutely, same here.
So I think that would be a really great and effective way to get this message out to folks. But I also think, I wouldn't feel prepared on my own to go into a school or give a presentation. Because I would have said, yes, those clamshell things are compostable, or not compostable, recyclable. So it would be really helpful to maybe have somebody from the communications committee, or once they're, to sort of sit with you or with somebody from your team and create something that can be like, okay, here's a 15-minute presentation along with some materials that can be distributed for whoever wants to or is available to give this presentation.
And I'd actually go one step further. I'd love to be able to give this presentation to the Sustainability Committee at one of our meetings, because they could also be a very good avenue by which we could spread the word.
Absolutely.
And Conservation Commission as well. Get them all on board.
I think one of the biggest challenges, even for me, and I live and breathe recycling, and I have for many years, is that it does change. And just because you think you know what's right today doesn't mean that's what is correct in a year or two. So people have to stay up on it and constantly updating. Like I said, when we started the contract with Waste Management, we could recycle plastic containers 1 through 7. But that changed with the contamination issues. And, if you know your numbers, I think 6 is polystyrene, it's foam, and that's never been recycling. So I don't know why they told us we could do 1 through 7. So it's hard for a non-professional to keep up with everything. And that's the only thing I would caution about is giving out, if you've got the resources, a PowerPoint or these brochures, just stick to that type of information. But just to do what you think is right at home, that's how we all get to where we are. And, same thing. I've tried to recycle shredded paper a few years ago, and then I I asked about it, and no, they said, that's not useful. So, it's challenging. And it does change from locale to locale. Like you said, you went somewhere in Florida and they weren't recycling glass. I go out to the southwestern part of the state where my mom is, and they don't recycle steel cans. So here I am collapsing, cutting the top and bottom off and squishing them down. And she's like, what are you doing that for? That just goes in the trash. And sure enough, I took it down to the transfer station and there was no steel cans. I don't know why. Every place is different, so.
Right, I have a few questions that are, some of them are particular to the product. But first, if I have in my bin something that's contaminated, and like the clamshell boxes or something like that, it gets picked up, but then what happens to it when it's, goes to the MRF and they find there's contamination? Do they just throw out the whole load?
It really depends. I mean, as you saw, there are a lot of there are a lot of people sorting and doing sorting. One of the reasons that they say no clamshell containers is they're very light.
Yeah.
Also, they're lighter than a bottle. They act differently on the rollers and the vibrators as they go through, and so they don't sort properly. So they have to be hand picked out and discarded. A few clamshell boxes in an entire truckload from Exeter is not going to result in a turned away truck at the MRF. That's not what would happen, but it does get picked out, or it gets treated as waste.
And then one of the things that I saw on the pages that you gave us was that plastic bottles should have their caps on,
Yes.
as opposed to
The caps can be recycled, but they should stay on the bottle. The reason is anything smaller than 2 inches, again, is something that can jam up in the works. So they don't want little pieces of paper. They don't want little pieces of plastic. And if you put the bottle cap back on the bottle, it'll at least be
Sizable,
recycled
yeah.
correctly.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because I was told differently
Well,
at the State House.
Again, years ago, they used to, I think the way the bottles were handled,
Yeah,
they would
wanted
be
to sink.
crushed, and it was, if the cap was on tight, it was kind of a pressurized thing, and, the cap could go shooting off, but I think the way they do it now, it's not a concern. So
Okay.
again, a change in the process.
So I can stop yelling at my girls about that?
Yes, yes, we love the caps, they add to the,
And I understand the shredded paper, but if I put it in a bag, still not, okay, well,
No.
I'm not doing that anymore
no.
anyway. And what about paper bags with not a paper handle like Walgreens is doing, but the kind of twiny paper?
Oh, yeah.
It's more like a string,
I believe that's okay.
okay.
Again, though, if you're concerned, tear the handles off and throw the
That's what I
handles
do.
out.
What about I'm sorry, are you not done?
No, I'm not done. One of the things when we were talking about communication is that the DPW website has a report a pothole button. And maybe we can do something like that with, is this recyclable? That's a start. Okay, then I'm going on to, because I haven't looked at the number on the bottom of my detergent bottle. Is that recyclable?
Yes.
But we should rinse it out.
Yes,
Okay.
you should rinse it out.
My advice, toss it in the washing machine with your clothes. No, it works.
We never
Wow.
have enough room. We have.
And just for general all-around knowledge, there is legislation that's going through to ban plastic bags, shopping bags statewide. And it's because of what you see in the jamming and et cetera. And we made my committee had to amend it to make it more specific to start out with. So it's just plastic grocery bags. People were getting concerned of a certain size and a density. People were getting concerned that their, Ziploc bags would have to, couldn't be, or would have to go away. Like you're only going to use wax paper from now on. So
Can I add to that, Julie? One thing is, and people always ask this question, but the grocery bags have the triangle symbol
Yeah.
on it. And they do, but again, those don't belong in the curbside collection. What you can do, though, is take those bags, I usually put them in one bag, and I have a big wad of them all in the same area where my recycling is, and you can take them back to participating retail and grocery stores.
Yeah.
And that's how you can deal with that waste, but
Yeah.
it can't be taken at the MRF.
Yeah, the object of the bill as it came out was to actually reduce the source.
Understand?
Yeah, so.
But in the meantime.
Yeah, in the meantime, it's just say no. And I think that's all I have.
We've mostly divested from Amazon, but sometimes we still get packages. What about those things that say that they're recyclable?
The green,
Yes.
the green,
No, again, it's like a
Okay.
plastic bag essentially, and it's the tensile strength of that is amazing. It just doesn't, you try and pull that apart, it's really hard.
what about
So-
the green peanuts? That's what I was thinking.
And
too.
those are
no.
styrene or
styrofoam, oh, yeah.
polystyrene, those are not
Those are no good
recyclable.
either, okay.
Save them up for when you need to package something. Christmas.
I know, right, it comes and makes you feel good because you're like, oh, all this packaging, it's recyclable, and it's
Well,
not.
I get a couple magazines that come in a recyclable sleeve. It's not really plastic, but it's not paper either. And
It
I
seems
throw
like it
away,
might be cornstarch type. Again, those they don't break down, they're a problem. Those go in the trash.
Yeah.
I'd consider that
So that could be in your
plastic bag.
compost then. You could probably, I mean,
Potentially. Most
Yeah, I
people's
don't-
compost doesn't run that
Right.
hot,
Right.
excuse me.
I contract with Mr. Fox Composting, and you can put your paper towels and your dirty pizza box portion and all that, and things like that.
Yep.
Would go in there.
May I ask one more question?
Go.
Jennifer, folks don't have the big blue recycling container with the cover, and they're using the smaller bins, and they're putting out their newspapers, paper and magazines and whatnot, and it's a day like today. They're putting it out before they go to work. Would you discourage them from doing that and waiting a week?
Yes,
Okay.
if possible. Yep.
good to know.
A lot of people have a lot of material. Maybe they just hold off on their paper.
So it's no good if it's wet?
No.
Okay.
It's no good at all if it's wet.
Thank you.
And don't tie your papers up anymore. One of the things that, again, this is all in single stream. Everything just literally gets dumped on the floor at the MRF and gets moved around and right up hopper and right onto the conveyors. We don't want newspapers tied up anymore. We don't want anything in bags. Let it go free.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a good question, because I'm embarrassed to say I'm the last one on my street not to get one of the big carts.
Get a big cart.
know, really.
Come on
Yeah.
down to Public Works. We have them there. We're thrilled to, I forget the cost. I apologize.
I think they're $65.
Yeah, it was 96 then. It's 96 gallons and $65.
But it also helps with them as far as the gentlemen that work the truck don't have to get out of the truck. So it's manpower hours too
Yep.
that you're saving.
All right.
And materials don't blow around on windy days. It's another benefit to having the cart with the lid.
Yeah, you ought to see my yard.
Yeah.
The wind comes up High Street.
Yeah.
And it all lands.
Yeah. Great.
This is really helpful.
Very
Thanks
much so.
for
Thank you.
having the suggestion, and thank you so much for being here. And should I connect with you and the communications committee to form a PowerPoint presentation about this?
Sure.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Okay. All right, but you can stay right up there for the next thing.
I know, because I had another question now. Oh, I know. How do you get rid of a tall kitchen garbage can? It's plastic, not recyclable, or if it is, it doesn't fit in the bin.
No, that's,
Something you have to take to the transfer station?
yes, it should go in with general trash. I also recommend trying to repurpose things. Something like that, maybe you could turn that into a compost container.
Well, right now, it's full of stuff that can't be recycled.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, large plastic, like the, children's toys and all of those, that stuff is not recyclable. Again, go back to, for plastic, what's the shape of it? Is it a bottle, a tub, like a margarine tub or a yogurt cup? Or something of that nature. That's recyclable plastic. Almost everything else is not.
Another question, do we, I know we have a metals bin at the transfer station. Do we send that, do we recover any cost of sending that out? And,
We do get a small revenue stream from that, but it's not very significant right now. But yes, metals, miscellaneous metals, even the coat hangers, all that stuff can go there.
Okay.
We'll take any metals there.
or you can bring your coat hangers back to your dry cleaner.
Right. And aluminum foil if it's clean, right?
Yes,
Or-
if it's clean, yeah.
But when is it ever clean if you've used
It's
it?
rare. I mean, sometimes when I use it for, like hot stuff just over the top and it just gets some condensation on it, but not cheese
Not
or
food
anything.
waste.
Yeah, you don't want any food particles. But let it dry.
That is a good thing to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on to the next, which is the intersection improvement contract. So I will let you take it away, Jennifer.
Yes, so in your packet tonight, we had included a contract with VHB to start the intersection improvements program that we've been talking about since town meeting of last year. And we've had some developments over the year. We did issue an RFP for the Salem Street project. One of the things that we like to do when we issue those RFPs is make it usable for future projects. We issued an addendum specifically to include engineering for traffic-related studies and projects. So based on the consultants that submitted for that RFP, VHB was our top choice for the transportation piece. And this is the first project that's coming up that's a transportation-related project. And I think you can see in the memo, we have been talking about several different locations where intersection studies are needed, whether it's Pine Street, Pine and Linden, or Front and Water right here, Clifford and Water. That had been one when we were doing the Route 85 closure, but I think it's probably less of a pinch point right now. And Winter, Columbus Railroad, and several others. So this would be this work to get this going. There'd be a lot of people in town that I'm sure would be interested in participating. And it's really looking at safety and what is, it's not just for traffic safety, but also for pedestrian safety, alternative modes of transportation, cyclists, and so on and so forth. And we've had a lot of near misses. We have had some real accidents, obviously, and we've even had some fatalities. And it's very important that we get this work going, and we want to be able to use this study to start populating future projects. This money, the $50,000, is not going to accomplish a lot of intersection improvement work. It's really to identify where the highest needs are, how to prioritize them, and how to develop at least planning level costs to move forward in the future. And the schedule for this would be, could be ready for this year's round of CIP. That's our goal, is to have some real recommendations to populate the CIP for future years.
Any questions? Yes.
I have one question. It's from a constituent, somebody that who has talked to me about this a number of times. Her name is Beth Dion, and she lives near the Linden Street, Pine Street exit, and she couldn't be here tonight because she's taking her son to driver's ed, which is what I think is motivating this.
Going through that
Yes,
intersection.
motivating this panic that she feels about the safety of that intersection. So I was wondering, what, if any, is the outreach to neighbors, abutters, whatever it is, through this process, or if that waits following when it's an actual item on the CIP?
That's a good question, and I know that there were meetings that were included in this, and I don't recall if they were public meetings or if it was more staff and stakeholder meetings. So I'll have to get back to you on that, I'm
Okay.
afraid. But obviously, as we move forward with any real project, there would be a lot of public information and public outreach. We do that with all of our projects.
Great. That's my question.
Okay. Yes.
Mine's a little more administrative. I just wanted to make sure, so did this go out to bid the way we normally do a bid where all these engineers would have put something together and then we open them up and then you go through? It sounds like this process was a little different, and I just want to get a better understanding of that. If you can answer that part, and then there's like part two.
So when we procure engineering services, we don't actually go out to bid. We use what's called qualifications-based selection, QBS
Right.
process. And very intentionally, we're not selecting engineers on price. We're selecting them based on the highest qualified contractor or engineer for the project. And then we negotiate scope and fee, making sure that, we're in agreement, that we're not out of feeling like we're not getting the value that we should be getting. If we're not, then we're allowed to move on to our next most qualified engineer in the process. And the state actually requires that we use QBS in selecting engineers for anything that gets state funding. I realize that this project isn't getting state funding now, but it could potentially lead to state funding later. So we wouldn't want to do anything but QBS.
Because that would jeopardize getting state money.
It could.
It could.
It could
Okay,
in
no,
the
that's
future.
fine. I just wanted to
Yep.
understand it, because I thought, because then it just seems sort of, and again, this is just me being the skeptical person that I tend to be. It was miraculously $50,000, which was exactly what. So then I didn't really see a breakdown of hourly rate. So that's why I'm just kind of getting into the nit of it. I just wanted to get a better understanding of how they derived that number, or when we've just said up to $50,000. So just in
Right.
case it weren't. So that's the only reason why I'm asking these kinds of questions.
Correct. And yes, it would only be up to 50,000. We wouldn't allow them to go over that, and they know that. We did explain that. We do get a breakdown of their hourly costs, and we just didn't provide all that backup information. But we do a pretty thorough job and make sure that the town is getting good value for
Yeah, no
the
doubt,
work.
no doubt, it was just
Yep.
the process. If they can do it for less than 50, that's great. But I appreciate, I think that's key on the, and it was in the memo, but I just wanted to be sure people understood why it didn't go through the regular bid process.
Right. It's actually state law.
Yeah, good, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I would look for a motion to,
Did you have a question?
did you have?
No.
To approve up to the design contract for intersection improvement plan to VHB for up to $50,000.
So moved,
And also authorize signature.
and authorize him to sign it.
Authorize the town manager or, right? To,
Sure, yes.
sign the contract?
So moved?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, go on to the next.
Madam Chair, is it
Yes.
possible, while Jennifer is,
Yes.
we've got her captive, that we can move to the EPA topic
Oh, yeah.
with the draft
Thank you.
permit?
Where is that in our stuff?
It was actually added as a supplement,
Yeah,
Oh, okay, just a minute.
the nitrogen. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And just by way of background, as you're calling this up, basically tomorrow is a public hearing on this new permit that's been issued by the EPA. And the permit would replace our current permit, our AOC actually. And it changes the schematic of the nitrogen loading from a milligrams per liter total nitrogen component to a kilogram per hectare categorization for all of Great Bay. So basically, this is a load-based permit that will restrict the number to 100, I believe, Great Bay wide.
Yes, 100 kilograms per hectare per year.
Per year.
And that
So-
equates to Exeter being 108 pounds So those are
Per day.
100 pounds per day at the wastewater treatment plant.
So just to, again, to frame this up, the concern we have is pretty clear that this is a concern of ours and a lot of communities around the Bay. And it's one of those things where we are, because of the time frame involved, there are a number of communities that are going to the hearing tomorrow, including ourselves. Jennifer and I will be there. It's at 6 o'clock at the Pease Trade Port. It is a public hearing. And we are expecting to raise concerns about this, along with the idea, and there was a draft letter that I gave to you just a bit ago on many communities would like to petition the state to do a peer review of the science and the methodology that got us to this measure. And of course, as you can imagine, there's a lot of debate, a lot of discussion about this and how widely accepted it is. But even with our brand new wastewater facility, you can see in Jennifer's memo that they are targeting the non-point source and stormwater point source load reduction at 45% over 23 years. So, and you can see, I'm trying not to steal your thunder,
That's
but
okay.
you can see under the annual cost for years 13 to 18 and 18 to 23, we've got not possible. The concern a lot of people have is that these new limits that are being presented are just not even achievable, given the current technology and what's available and how we may be able to tackle this. So we're somewhere between not achievable and potentially spending additional millions and millions of dollars on whether it's upgrades or non-point source reduction costs. And obviously, we're very concerned about that, having put millions of dollars into our new facility and the things that went with it. So with that being said, we're hoping to get your blessing on the letter that we can present to tomorrow's session and at least get that process and dialogue going with the state regarding the peer review.
I think one of the challenges is that most of us realize that there are still needed water quality improvements in Great Bay. I don't think there's too much debate about that. Exeter just finished our upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant. Actually, we started operating the plant in June of 2019. We haven't even finished everything on the site, but it's essentially operating. But we just brought on the UV disinfection process about a month ago. We haven't finished our lab facility, so that work is still going on. We haven't even started repayment of the loan. We haven't had an opportunity to monitor any recovery of the receiving waters based on these improvements. We've reduced our nitrogen load significantly, probably by 75% with that upgraded plant. And there's been no time to monitor to see if there's any kind of a response. And we would expect to see some response, but we realize that it probably isn't enough fast enough. And that's where some of this pressure is coming from. But the uniqueness of this permit is that it's a load permit, as Russ indicated, that's new. This permit would be just for total nitrogen. We'll still continue to have our own individual permit at our wastewater plant, and everybody else will for everything else, BOD, TSS, coliform bacteria, so on and so forth. So this is an additional permit on top of that. And it does require ambient monitoring for the entire Great Bay for the 12 wastewater treatment plants that are on the hook. We've been told that those costs could be up to $1.5 million in the first year. That's for everybody. If Exeter's flow, and they're talking about parsing it out based on design flow, we'd be up for 11% of that. And then after the first year, because there's some capital costs for equipment, it would be about $1 million a year for the monitoring costs alone. We're just talking in 10 years, over $10 million for monitoring, not for actually affecting any change, building in any new stormwater treatment. And as you can see, trying to target anything really above the 20, even 22% is too much. I think probably 15% might be achievable, but not in the first 8 years, certainly not in the first 3. Maybe in 12 years we could do it. So I think they're really pushing an extremely high bar that is not going to be attainable. And that's a concern in any kind of a permit. You want something that's attainable for many reasons. Otherwise, you're beholden to that forever. They can't ratchet it backward by law, by the Clean Water Act. So we've got to be very careful. It should be really what we call an adaptive management approach, where you set a medium, monitor, see, response, set another slightly higher bar. Don't go all the way to the maximum possible. That's just very challenging. So that's kind of where we're concerned. And still understanding, as you saw, I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of the links that I'd included with this on the EPA page, but there's probably 80 pages. I've read it probably 4 or 5 times, and every time I read it, I have a slightly different, I have another question or something that isn't clear. So there's a lot here. And the public comment period, even though tomorrow's the public hearing, the public comment period closes on March 9th. So we will have a couple more weeks to pull comments together, but not a lot of time.
So what you need from us is to kind of give our blessing to have this letter or...
Yes, we'd like to be able to go to that meeting tomorrow night and say that, our board is supportive of what's contained in that letter and feel like we, having just spent the $54 million we've spent, and discharging nitrogen levels that are vastly improved using the most greatest and latest technology, that we feel like getting hit with a new permit like this, kind of out of the blue, would be good. It would be good to join in asking for the very things that have come to create this permit be really re-reviewed and have a scientific peer review to justify their basis. So that's really what we're looking for at this point. I would basically say it's a process issue. I mean, I'm sure you've seen, there was an article, I think, in Seacoast Online on Friday. They talked about the potential costs of implementing this permit to be upwards of $1 billion with a B, dollars. And the communities really need time to burrow into this more and figure out exactly what it means in context of the technology and how we would actually go about being able to achieve this. And I'm never one of these people that likes to sound alarmist, but I think this is one of those things where we really have to go in there and say, this has to be reviewed. I just don't think there's any other thing to put on the table at this point.
How come we're getting such a late notice? I mean, it sounds like everybody's getting late notice. Like, it does sound like we're sort of sprung on it, so, I mean, was there some kind of process we might have been able to find out about, or?
Well, there were discussions between some of the municipalities and the state early on, because they felt that pushing everybody to a 3 milligram per liter total nitrogen limit in their wastewater permits wasn't the best or cheapest way to reduce nitrogen, that maybe there were some opportunities for removing nitrogen in stormwater and non-point source. But because Exeter's been in our administrative order, and we've had to look at where else can we remove nitrogen, we've determined that the cost of the non-point source nitrogen removal are much higher than going to a 3 at the wastewater treatment plant. I mean, we'd be better served if we could to just add additional capacity at the new plant, add carbon so that we can drive the nitrogen down to below 3 and be done with it. It would be expensive. I mean, that adds on top of what we've spent at 55 million, and it limits our flow. It cuts off development. That's another thing that we didn't really talk about, but this is basically a moratorium on additional loads in the future, and additional loads could be coming from the impervious surface that comes from development, or it could be the additional flow that comes to the wastewater treatment plant as nitrogen. So, this is really big stuff. And so I believe there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We were not privy to that. But then it was last spring was the first we heard about it, and it was kind of a presentation that DES did to the municipalities. I wasn't even copied on that notice, so I could not attend. I had another obligation. I did send staff to it, and they came back, and I did get the printouts. But again, it wasn't really real until this December, November, when the assistant commissioner of DES and one of his staff came to talk to Russ and me about what this could mean for the town of Exeter.
Right, I'm not saying you're behind the 8 ball, I'm saying they're behind the.
Right. And we raised some concerns about this on a preliminary basis it was late fall. And as Jennifer said, these things sort of hang in the ether. We're thinking about it, they may come out this way, but you don't actually know until the permit lands on your desk or on the website, and you can review it, and actually the engineers look at it and you begin to understand what it all means. And that was a very good point that Jennifer made about the cap. It essentially creates sort of this region-wide, if you think about it, cap on any development that exceeds that limit. So it is very, very far-reaching in its potential impacts to the region.
Yeah, I have a question. It's always troubled me about the non-point source pollution being included with our treatment, or what we can treat. Does the EPA or DES give us any guidance on identifying where you're going to get non-point source pollution, or how to change it?
Well, they have some, I got to be careful. I can get a little emotional about it. They certainly have some theoretical ideas of how it can be done and what might be your biggest bang for your buck. It's not always in agreement with our consultants who do deal with this on, boots on the ground every day type of approaches, and there's definitely some discrepancy between those two groups. We have our consultants who I know they're doing frontline work and doing good work, telling us that we're not going to be able to get above 15% removal. We can't even come close to 45% removal. A lot of projects that are non-point source projects that have been touted, one of them is Barry's Brook in Dover. It was a very successful project, but it was a project that had been identified over 20 years ago, where they had a very dense residential neighborhood and an impacted pond. And they were able to put in gravel infiltration trenches and rain gardens and things of that nature. But you don't have that many Barry Brook type projects in any town.
Right.
And we were figuring you need about 2.5 Barry Brook projects in every municipality every year for the next 23 years. And it's just, they don't exist. Okay. So, I kind of use that high level look at it as what's achievable versus getting too caught up in the nuances. I mean, we're doing some really good things here with our street sweeping program, catch basin cleaning, leaf collection. We'll have to up those programs. What we're doing isn't 100%. We're going to have to do probably leaf collection more than once a season. In the fall, we'll probably have to do leaf collection several times. And street sweepings, all the streets with leaves on them. We'd be getting onto private property. That's another big taboo, right, in New Hampshire. Working with septic owners so that they upgrade and not just put in a conventional septic system, but a nitrogen reducing septic system. Yeah. And maybe the town needs to provide the incentive, maybe the cost differential incentive to get people to do that. I mean, we're talking some novel approaches that, I'm not saying they're bad. I think there are probably some really good things in there, but are we ready? Yeah, it's money. and are we-
Organizing it and, yeah,
So,
thank you.
So, I don't know if I think we're all in agreement. I don't know if we need a motion or we just send you along your way with, saying we're here for you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I
make-
think it's one of those things that when we go tomorrow, if we can just say, we met with our board last night, we'll mention that. And based upon what you all were seeing, everybody was in agreement that this is daunting and
Yes.
we would like to see more done on it before it gets finalized. And obviously,
Exactly.
this is a step in the process tomorrow night. And then there's that comment period, the 60-day window that ends March 9th, that we have people diligently working on creating comments, including Jennifer and Wright Pierce, our consultants and so forth, to try to get those prepared for the official record. And I did want to note too, because I think Jennifer made an important point in her memo. She talks about how the load limit they've identified does not account for reductions in atmospheric deposition of nitrogen. So that's one of the things we kind of forget when we talk about nitrogen, is that there's atmospheric deposition that makes up a certain percent of what exists in the Great Bay watershed. Majority, thank you. And even pet waste, right? So, I mean, that's a component of it as well. So there are things that we try to work with pet waste as much as we can, but there are other things that are out of our control that make this even more difficult. So it's really something that obviously we're going to be talking about it a lot in the coming year. And we're all going to be reading about the impacts. The good news is we have our facility, but this is well beyond that. So.
Good luck.
thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next discussion item, which is the public hearing for the TAP program easement. So I would look to open the hearing.
Madam Chair, would I
Yes.
have a motion to open the Transportation Alternatives Program public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay.
Hello,
Hi,
thank
Dave.
you. Dave Sharples, Town Planner. I guess I'll go.
Yes, please.
You have a memo and a map, and just tell you why I'm here. And a little background. Excuse me. You all know, I'm sure, about the Transportation Alternatives Program grant that I received back in 2017. It was to connect 3 sidewalks on a portion of Epping Road, Winter Street, and right here downtown in Spring Street. And the voters approved providing a match for that. It's about a $500,000 project. And they provided, the 20% match. It's federally funded 80%. They voted to approve that in the March 2017 town warrant. And then during the design, over the last couple of years, and it just takes that long, the TAP process just is a couple of years till construction. That's basically what it is. But during the design, we realized we needed a handful of permanent and temporary construction easements to install the sidewalks. And I don't know, maybe a week and a half ago or so, I got the last landowner to sign off on the easement. So I have signatures from all the landowners involved. They're all willing to provide the easements to the town. But with the sale of or acquisition of any type land, it's governed by RSA 4114A. And I did provide, I think, the relevant section. But the select board shall have the authority to acquire or sell land, buildings, or both, provided, however, they first shall submit any such proposed acquisition or sale to the planning board and to the Conservation Commission for review and recommendation by those bodies. Then they shall hold 2 public hearings, at least 10, but not more than 14 days apart on the proposed acquisition or sale. And then the selectmen's vote shall take place no sooner than 7 days nor later than 14 days after the second public hearing, which is held. So I've gotten all the easements in place. I'm here to come before you to start the double hearing process. As I wrote in my memo, I did appear before the Conservation Commission on February 11th and the Planning Board on February 13th. Both were supportive of the project and unanimously had no objection to the Select Board moving ahead and acquiring the easements. And I suggested in my memo, February 18th tonight, to hold the first public hearing, March 2nd to hold the second public hearing, and then March 16th to vote on the easement acquisition. And then that will allow us to, we're submitting final plans this week for PS&E. We need the right-of-way certificate, which this would be part of, having you vote to authorize. I know you've already voted to authorize Russ to sign, the town manager to sign any and all agreements, but this doesn't, is trumped by RSA 4114A, so we have to go through this side-by process so he can sign off on the easements, and then we'll be able to go out to bid this spring and construct it, as soon as possible, this construction season.
Great. So you really aren't looking for anything from us tonight. It'll be the third meeting that we make a motion, correct?
Correct, that's how it works. And I did, just to tell you, I did provide a plan set showing the three locations. It's, hopefully you got a colored version. If they weren't colored, it's, I guess, the dark, the dark part. The first one is out on Epping Road in Columbus. It's just a little triangle. It's about 70 square feet. And then it shows a little bit on a temporary easement and a permanent easement on Winter Street. And then also 3 permanent easements on Spring Street and a temporary easement. And that's it. And all the landowners, have already signed off their offer and agreements, and they're willing to provide the easements to the town.
Great.
That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, so we'll open the hearing to anybody that would like to speak. If not, we'll close it, and we could, does anybody have any questions for Dave? Otherwise, we could look to close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, motion to close the public hearing on the Transportation Alternatives Program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And I'm sorry, Ann and I will not be voting on this ultimately. But thank you for all your work. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the E911 updates and committee report.
Thank you.
Dave.
Start again, yeah. Well, just a little background, I haven't been here in a while, but the E911 committee was created in part to review the street addressing audit that was completed by the State of New Hampshire Division of Emergency Services and Communications. They created a map and report that outlined a list of suggested changes to the town's street names and addresses. The E911 committee continues to review the report and is in the process of making recommendations. This is the final recommendation on duplicate street names. We had one left, and it was Spruce Court and Spruce Street. Spruce Court is a short dead-end street off of Spruce Street, and the report suggested, as with all the other duplicate street names, to rename that. And the addressing standards prepared by the Department of Safety says each street within a municipality should be given its own unique name to prevent confusion on the part of emergency responders. In the case of a new road, the municipality is prohibited from choosing a name which is already in use or which is confusingly similar to any such existing name or which otherwise might delay the location of any address in an emergency. So basically, if we were to name Spruce Court today, by law, we couldn't name Spruce Court because there's already a Spruce Street. The reasons the committee were recommending changing it to Cape Lane is that it was suggested we reached out I went, kind of knocked on the doors and then met a resident there. We've been emailing back and forth. She said she talked to the neighbors. She came back with Cape Lane, which that's her preferred choice. It meets the requirement. There's no Cape Lane in Exeter. It doesn't sound confusingly similar to anything. So we decided to, adopt that recommendation. And the recommendation can be the motion, change the name of Spruce Court to Cape Lane and renumber the 6 structures in accordance with Chapter 14, assigning street names and numbers. The first 2, 1, and 3, as you go in, 1's on the right, 3's on the left. The number won't change, but the name will. But then the other 4 houses in the back will be 7 and 11, and then 8 and 12, because the new ordinance says every 50 feet, we give it a number. And a lot of people say, in some neighborhoods, and this one might be right, why do that? Why change the number? But if you do it every 50 feet, then if ever, I don't know what the, future holds, but if ever someone, builds a accessory structure or accessory dwelling unit, we need another number for a separate structure on the thing, there'll be a number available to give it, because we've just moved in, the committee just moved toward looking at all the addressing non-standard issues in town. And if we did that before and gave a number every 50 feet, we wouldn't have any of these addressing issues that we're having now. Like at Hampton Road, the subdivision came in and there's 52 and 54 and 2 houses went in between 52 and 54. What do you do? Luckily in that case, it was a long driveway, so we said, name the driveway. So we're giving them a name, and then they're, 2 and 4, or 1 and 2 respectively, but there's just not numbers out there available, so. Also recommend changing. I think someone might be here as well to speak. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. So we'll open it up to the public. Anybody here to speak to that? Okay, we'll bring it back. Anything, Ann, do you have anything to say?
I just make a quick comment, because this will probably be my last time talking about E911 officially, since we have met behind the scenes on a monthly basis, and, Dave's done a nice job of simplifying or basically condensing everything down, but they are now moving into the phase that I think is going to be even more challenging in some ways. And I've been on this 2 years, and we have finished all the duplicate names, which, again, the rest of the committee isn't here, but Doug Eastman, Justin Pizon, Michael Monk, our Assistant Chief Monk, and Assistant Chief Justin Pizon, Doug Eastman, Building Inspector, and Code Enforcement Officer, and Bob McAvoy have done a tremendous job with this. Everything from site walks and talking to the public, anytime there was a neighborhood involved. There was a lot of work done behind the scenes, more than you see right here, and it's actually been quite enjoyable, and really, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for them. And, we discuss what we need to do, and we get it done, and it's been very interesting and fun. But the challenge will be the numbering coming up. I think that's going to be very challenging, and hats off to the committee to keep on doing this, because at the end of the day, it's all about the public safety, and done a tremendous job. And with that, do you want a motion for this?
Yes,
My
please.
long-winded way to get to the
Please.
motion. So motion to change the name of Spruce Court to Cape Lane and renumber the 6 structures in accordance with Chapter 14, assigning street names and numbers.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. We now have a name, Cape Street. Oh, Cape Lane. All right, next we will have the facilities fee update, including Swayze Parkway Parkway fees. I know Greg and Melissa aren't here tonight, but Nico and Ann, I know you worked on this, and if you wanted to talk this through.
Sure, Madam Chair. You had suggested that Ann and I sit down again and take another stab at the Swayze Park and property use, and admittedly, we spent most of the time on the Swayze Park and really did not alter too much from what we presented to the board back in December. If you recall, sometime in November, you had charged the 2 of us to sit down with Greg and Melissa and work out the fees and try to restructure them in a more fair manner, and also to simplify it. And so we thought we had done so pretty much in the first stab, but we met last Friday, and our proposal for discussion amongst the board for Swayze Park fees is, again, to simplify it by breaking it down by profit and nonprofit, but also considering some of the public comment from back in December, and also a sentiment from the rest of the board. of adding resident and non-resident. You'll recall that we had excluded that back in December. So break it down by nonprofit and profit, resident and non-resident. We would eliminate the column that had the capacity. It would just be for whether it's 1 or 100. So for the nonprofit, we would suggest, we would recommend discussion on a fee of $100 per event. And for profit, we'd originally said 200, and we brought that down to 150, and that is for profit. Regarding the resident and non-resident, we talked about that briefly, and we talked about keeping a cap on how many events, whether you were nonprofit, profit, resident, or non-resident. And then upon looking at the minutes and going over my notes over the weekend, I called in this afternoon. We spoke this afternoon over the phone because I recollected that in deferring to residents, whether it be nonprofit or profit, that the residents would have a cap of up to 6 events per year, and non-residents, whether they be nonprofit or profit, be capped at 4 events. And this was discussed again back December 16th. So we bring that back to the board.
Okay.
Did I get that?
We don't
right,
have
Ann?
we don't have a chart, so I'm just trying to,
The chart, unfortunately, the chart that was in the packet is the one that we
Yeah.
used prior to meeting with Greg and Melissa in December.
right.
Right, we had modified it since then.
Okay, can you go through those again? So,
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull the chart.
resident, non-profit, and resident for-profit.
So essentially, we take the category. If you look at the chart,
Yep.
the category is going to be nonprofit and for-profit.
Right,
The number of vendors column is eliminated. The length of event, again, we cap that at 6 events per year
Right.
for a resident and 4 events for a non-resident.
okay,
The number of people attending, we eliminated that.
okay,
And the fees, again, the nonprofit was $100 per event, and the for-profit was $150 per event. And also, just I may add that we proposed back in December grandfathering the farmer's market for the reasons that we stipulated back in December.
so resident and then non-resident, they're the same price?
The price is correct.
Okay,
What we wanted to avoid for both resident and non-resident is any one organization monopolizing. We recognized, I think, and we talked what the season really is, mid-April to October. So, and the other thing I may remind the board is we had recommended that the resident, whether it be nonprofit or profit, have that extra month window so that they would get first crack.
right,
And I think the only thing I would add is and this was just in today's discussion, that even though, and not to muddy the waters even further, even though 4 was what we talked about in the in the minutes of the meeting in December, I think what Selectman Papa Constandis and I.
Very good.
Or, I was going to somewhat lobby for 5, so the only difference would be 1. And then we decided that was up to the board, how we want to do this. It's not up to us to make the decision, but I just thought 5 and 6, and then the 30-day was enough. We were trying to make it as equitable as possible, but understanding that at that meeting, there were in fact at least 3 or 4 people that were speaking about it, and they took the time to come here, and they were in favor of giving, a little bit of, I'm not going to say preferential treatment, but to some degree preferential treatment to Exeter.
And my recollection is the appetite of the board was this was simple.
And right, the board was kind of the same way. So that I would offer up 5 as opposed to 4, and we can just see what the board wants to do with that.
okay. Molly, do you have any questions on that?
Not yet.
Julie?
Again, not yet.
Okay.
And since actually, and I didn't even know if any of the trustees were here, but if Mr. Staples would like to say something, if he has
But now.
at some point, I think that's fine.
You can't speak for the trustees.
I understand.
Because the trustees
Well, they should have been invited, but that's a whole different topic, because I've been saying that right along. I think that Parkway trustees should have some level of input on the fees to the Parkway that they manage. So it just so happens that Mr. Staples is here, because I certainly didn't set the agenda and didn't remember to invite him, so, but they should have been invited.
That's your opinion. Okay, so you're all fine,
Yes, yep.
okay? I will open it up to the public, so the public can speak. Come on up, speak.
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time or not.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Craig Solomon, and I have a topic of discussion that relates to facilities fees, not Swayze Parkway particularly. So if you want to continue
Oh,
your
I see,
discussion of
okay,
that.
yes, no, we're right now talking about Swayze Parkway. Anybody want to speak?
Beth Dupel, non-resident. Don't know if I can speak.
Is everybody fine with Beth
Yes.
speaking? Yes.
I mainly have a question. I'm not quite sure what the non-resident fee was.
150 was what we proposed.
That was
Per
for
event.
profit, and then nonprofit was, right, because
So there was,
I beg your pardon, yes. So it was broken down. It was profit, whether it's resident or non-resident. Nonprofit was $100 per event, and then for-profit was $150 per event.
so the residency restriction is no longer, is that, I'm
the restriction is only
On frequency.
the numbers
On
of
the
events.
frequency.
Right.
We're
But
trying
the
to
price is the same.
simplify the fees.
Right.
Okay.
Dwayne, you can speak as a person, a citizen, so you just can't speak as the board, you know what I mean?
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Dwayne Staples, 33 Ashford Road. So my question is, if you have an organization and let's say the head of that organization is not a resident, however, there are residents that belong to that organization, how are you going to handle that?
I take it as the organization is either based in Exeter or it's not based in Exeter.
Right.
If you could give me a specific example, I might be able to.
Well, I can't really give you a specific example. I'm just thinking about organizations that have members from different communities. The organization may not be based in Exeter, or it could meet in Exeter, it could meet in other surrounding towns. But if there's a resident on that organization, whether it's a nonprofit or for-profit, and they want to use that, how is the board going to look at that?
Well, I'm one voice on the board, and that's how I just answered it. If the organization is based in Exeter, then I consider that to be a resident. If it's not based in Exeter, it would be non-resident.
Right, if it's,
Okay.
there is, you fill out the application, and on the application, it has the address of the organization. And that's the basis of where the organization is from.
Okay,
That's what I would say.
all right, thank you.
Okay,
But I would offer too, that much like we've done as a board, I mean, if we find that we come across something, it's something that we can always consider. I mean, and I think Ann and I, we talked about this today, the applications are processed through the Parks and Rec. But obviously, if there's an organization that feels, aggrieved, I mean, they're certainly welcome to come before the select board. But I guess, I'm sticking with my answer, but much like other things we've done, if we find that it needs to be fine tuned because that's not working, then that's something that can be brought back to the board. I mean,
I guess I do have an example, having been involved with youth hockey. The local youth hockey association, the board is made up of a lot of different people. At times, we'd have a P.O. box here in Exeter. At times, the president might be here in Exeter, but it's not necessarily based here in Exeter. So, again, do you look at the where the mailing address is? Do you look at if it's a residence, if the head of the organization is a resident?
so I guess I would counter that with, if you're looking at, a youth sports organization, you use an example of EGBL, which is based in Exeter. The mailing address is in Exeter. They meet in Exeter. There are other sports organizations that that certainly encompass Exeter kids, but their organization may not be based in Exeter. So I would call them non-resident versus the Little League, which is, I think that's answering. That's how I would interpret it, but there's also 4 other opinions of it.
I mean, that's how I would interpret it as well.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, the good news is, as was said earlier, any of these, and this goes into the other part of this memo where it talks about the fact that things come to the rec is fine, but if someone has a question or they think something should be considered by this board, they should have that, I'm gonna say the term waiver opportunity, because it isn't like something's cast in stone. There might be something that just isn't black and white, and they should have that option, because we're the ones that are setting the fees. Ultimately, rec is just administering what we've come up with. So if someone wants to appeal something, they should be given that opportunity.
But I think that being said, what we're trying to accomplish too is with not only doing what's right and fair by the organizations, whether they be resident, non-resident, profit or nonprofit, but also try to simplify it as such so that the board isn't, having to deal with this every time of a board meeting. I mean, that was the whole point of having, the Parks and Rec administrators is to kind of delegate that to the board. So we need to come up with a way so that we're not, hearing requests for waivers all the time.
Organizations will typically have two, just to weigh in on this, that will have in their bylaws where they're based. They should. I know many of them do. And, wearing another hat that I wear, I can say that other communities take that into account as much as we would as well. And having run into that, whether you want to use a facility in another town, there's a lot of towns that have rules, regulations, fees, if you're not based in the town. So you either make that choice. You pay them or you find another place to meet, maybe in your own town. So those conversations go on a lot.
Beth?
Back again. One question, the frequency, is that going to be implemented for other town facility usage as well, or no?
That's something for the board to discuss, but I would like to see that widespread for all facilities. I just want to make sure that, 1 or 2 organizations isn't monopolizing, our facilities. I'd like everybody to have an opportunity.
So does that mean, I agree with you, but I also think that maybe it should be limited in scope to the town hall on Swayze Parkway, which are sort of our flagship places to hold events in the town.
Yep.
And it, if the wheelwright room is available, for example,
Exactly.
Right, it's fine if we rent it out.
That's what.
Yeah, okay.
For instance, with the town hall, one of the things that I think we've talked about as a board too, is avoiding, having somebody monopolize the auditorium for months just to store equipment or have rehearsals or something. And I just use that as one example. If you've put in an application for the town hall for some sort of a performance, I think there's an industry standard that you have a certain number of days prior to that performance that, it would be acceptable to hold rehearsals and such. But I've also seen situations where the town hall, I think we saw just in this political season, we had some presidential candidates that were shut out of town hall because it was reserved, but it wasn't being used. It was just storing equipment for rehearsals. So I think I'd just try to, eliminate, we want to use it. We want to see it used.
I think there's a difference between events and meetings, is what you're basically saying. So
the other,
the other ones, so you're only the town hall and there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping you'll give me a few more moments, because this really, at this point, really impacts just one event, an event that I'm behind at this point. And certainly I'm disappointed, and that's okay. I'm allowed to be disappointed. But I've been involved in many events in this town, and the Heron Group was a group that did a lot of events in this town. And if we were still as active as we were, that means some of the events we did would have been not allowed, which is disappointing. I also, since 2017, really the number of events has diminished. There hasn't been an increased demand. So I understand the concern for wanting to keep the park available and fair, but I guess I would say that the terminology of monopoly is a new term that just popped up late last year. And, the parkway within its rules, particularly the inability to charge a ticket price and the inability to solicit donations, already has a mechanism in place to limit the number of events that anyone could do, because you can't financially support doing that unless you have an event that is purely funded by sponsorships. So as I hear, the farmers market started some 43 years ago, there haven't been a lot of people banging on the door looking for reoccurring multiple events in those 43 years. And I think we're all grateful that the people at the table 43 years ago didn't turn the farmers market away because they were concerned about there being an increased request for usage of the parkway, because the farmers market has added a lot to this community. And as a downtown business owner, those Thursdays are pretty special. That's the day we have a parking problem. That's the day we have a congestion problem. That's the day people are on the streets. And that Thursday in November, after they end, we miss it. We miss it sorely. So as somebody who is behind an initiative that has a similar vibe as the farmers market, the Swag on Swayze markets, and my husband and I conceived this idea specifically to bring people to town, an economic boost to these businesses that we're friends and neighbors of, and that we have been supporters of for the 10 to 12 years we've been on this street. It's a unique event in this town, unlike the events that we have that are great events. But those events, they're coming to learn about history. They might be learning about UFOs and an incident. They might be sampling some beer and some chili. They're not coming to shop and spend their money in the stores. And that's where swag is different. People are coming specifically to shop. And I've heard from all of them. Why are you doing? Why aren't you fighting this? Why aren't you working harder? How are we going to save this? This is the one day of the month. In June and July, when retail tanks, that's their one glimmer. A lot of these businesses, it's fourth quarter that keeps them going. Fourth quarter. So they're waiting all year. That's why they have a sidewalk sale in July. Get rid of some inventory, get some cash. And for me, Dave and I don't lose. We get 7 Saturdays back. And in a summer season, that's a lot of time that you give up with your family and your friends to do something leisurely. These businesses are the ones that lose. The community loses. Because just like the farmers market, we have a community that is around swag. And I can share many stories with you. The mother and son that bike down every swag because the son likes military stuff. And we have a couple military vendors who come. It's like, hey, Beth, we're here again. We're going to go see Eddie. We know a couple that relocated to Exeter because of swag. They came to swag, enjoyed the market, saw what a great town this was, then started looking and bought real estate, and they live here now. So that community component that we're bringing once a month to this town is going to be missed by these merchants. It's going to be missed by community members. I think some of them have written to you. They've told me they have. I haven't solicited, but I do know those businesses have said it's a boom for them. It's a good day for them. And when they don't have many bright lights, they're going to be very disappointed that they've lost this bright light.
So is the first concern that you're talking about here the limitation on the number
Well, the
of events?
limitation is new. So originally when I sent my applications in, got them approved.
4 at a time.
Well, I got them approved, sent over my money. Originally, it was the price that increased.
Yep.
But then the frequency popped up at the end of the year, which is totally new. And I'll be honest with you, if there's only 4 events, I'm probably just going to be 2, and they're going to be the arts and crafts festivals because those are guaranteed. They run differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't lose money on those. The antiques markets are a total different beast. You don't do it to make money. You ask any of those dealers, they're looking at me like, how you doing? Because this isn't easy. We know you're working your butt off and you're not making any money. It's about a passion and a love. And I'm honest, Dave and I have not looked at other venues because why we started this was to bring people to this town, to shop, support these businesses, check out this great community we all live in. We're hidden. We're hidden between Hampton Beach. We're hidden between Portsmouth and Newburyport. Nobody comes to Exeter. They come a couple of times a year when there's some great events that we host. But this was giving them a reason to come once a month. So we're not looking to move this elsewhere. We've been asked, move it here, move it there. I don't want to be on a farm. It's not why we do it. We're doing it to be ambassadors of this town, to bring some energy to this town, to bring some life and community. And as all of you love the farmers market, we have the same jive going on. Same thing. Different product, different day, but the same kind of energy. So Dave and I don't lose. The community loses. The business owners lose. And as much as we had an idea of what this was going to do and how people were going to come to this town, it's had different impacts. I didn't think about the dealers who had never been here before. Now when they're out looking for other treasures, they come to town and have lunch at St. Anthony's. Why? Because they've had breakfast there. They've met him. They feel safe as a single person going into his shop. They used to just drive by on 101 to their next thrift store or auction, wherever they were going. This year, what we saw was Sea Dog people. They were coming down the hill. Hey, where are you coming from? Oh, we came into town, went to have lunch at Sea Dog, saw your sign, so we walked the street. So they're not just walking up the street from the market, they're walking down the street from the market. So this is a labor of love. If somebody wants to start it tomorrow and think they're gonna make a ton of money, go right ahead. Go right ahead. That's not what it's about. So I feel I'm here representing the people that I know have been calling me and emailing me, saying, what are you doing about this? And I'm like, I don't have any answers. So back to your question, Julie, about the frequency. The problem we've always been challenged with is that it was never the third Saturdays of the month. You know, we fit it around other established events. We fit it around other applications that were already in process. So that was always a challenge. If there's 4, July, August, September, October, it doesn't make sense because July and August aren't great months because it's summer. They're hit or miss. So then the 4 months are disconnected. That would be the best months. And each market now is going to become its own marketing, whereas before we were marketing a whole series. You know, most flea markets, just like farmers markets, are once a week, once a month, whatever it is. And you know, that's not your issue, but I just want you to understand the impact that this is having. And you know, if there's nobody banging on your door for all those Saturdays, and I understand the applications are down this year, I don't see what the loss is, because all I hear is the stories of the people of it's a win. It's a win. We love it. We go to it. My family likes it. And I didn't do a campaign to get them here, to rally them. That's not my style. Not my style at all. Because it speaks for itself. So guys, I'm here. I tried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be running the meeting here. So the fee of $150 an event, is that an issue as well? I thought
The fee quickly became a non-issue to a certain degree when the merchants heard that was going away, because now they want to do, what can we do to help pay for it? What can we do to help keep this going? So
So how many
200,
applications do you have
150
in?
at this point.
How many do you have usually? 6?
The flea market had 7. At a minimum, 6 would be the best. If the arts and craft, the difference is the flea markets, I think the challenge for the flea markets is that there's no rain out issue. So if on a Wednesday, you know it's going to be rain, you still have to pay your fee. But then there's no event. And I know that would be hard to do, so I'm not even asking that. But no, your question, Kathy, was the price. We've got to figure out the finances and the price. But if you were to ask me before I came in this room, the frequency is more of a concern for me than the price, because my marketing, I have to market each market as a separate event, which is more marketing costs. It's just like marketing a team event or marketing the Independence Festival. You know, it's one day. And if you see, there are some other events similar to ours. There's the Vintage Bazaar, but you can see they start getting bigger. They start throwing in food trucks and they start throwing in music because you can't just make it off the dealers. And I have no desire to make it a festival. That's not my shtick. So, you know, that tonight the fees are very attractive. Thank you very much. I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments on?
Did you have?
Well,
I do, but I'll let you go.
in concept, earlier, last year or whenever we were discussing this, the idea of limitations on the number of permits at a location, and particularly Swayze, was attractive to me, only thinking about the opportunities for more new things. But I can understand something that's been in practice for a couple of years. There's an expectancy. I know a lot of people that are expecting to see this, and to limit it to just the 4 or whatever. What was your maximum?
It was between 4 or 5.
Between 4 and 5.
Yeah. I could be convinced to change that.
I mean, the numbers are somewhat arbitrary. This is why the board is here. I mean, this is for everybody to talk about.
Yeah.
So I guess my only comment, and I appreciate your words tonight, and I appreciate what you've done. And I said this back in November and December when you were here. This is not personal, and it's certainly nothing personal, you know, against the swag. My family and I enjoy it as well. What Ann and I thought we're charged with was trying to make this as fair as possible for any applicant, and also to facilitate the process and kind of pare down the chart. So it wasn't really it wasn't having in mind 1 or 2 organizations that annually hold something there. Second of all, you know, where I was coming from with this was to make it available for anybody else. It's becoming a popular place. I know the Sustainability Committee is already talking about trying to get applications for 2 or 3 things they want to do there. So I think that people are starting to figure out that this is a really cool place to be. The fees, again, it's not to make money for the town. It's more so just for whatever upkeep that we need, or whatever that they've been used for in the past. So where I'm coming from is just to try to make this easier, try to make it more fair, and try to open it up for all. The other part of this was, let's face it, between the season that it's open, would we say late April to October, I mean, you've only got so many weekends, and people want the weekends. They don't, you know, the farmer's market happens to be Thursday, because that's usually when most farmers markets are. There's been talk, you know, amongst the board of possibly maybe closing the Parkway down 1 day a month or 2 days a month for, you know, kids to bike or whatever. So it really closes the opportunity that multiple people can have events. I mean, how many applications are in now? It's mid-February, so I don't know what else is coming down the pike or who else would apply. I'm not looking for just this year. I mean, at least that was what I thought the charge was for us. So I just I appreciate what you're saying, and, you know, I love your organization, and I love what you've done. It's not you. It's not
I
that
understand
event.
entirely, but I would also say that when swag is in place, there's a road closure, and families do come down. They're biking, they're playing Frisbee. It's
I understand, but one has nothing to do with the other.
I understand, but it's not as if it's not a big event, it's not a loud event, it's a very quiet event.
But there's been appetite, and I think the board discussed this before, there's been appetite, you know, for residents that want it closed down with nothing there.
I understand.
Closed down.
I totally get it, it's a park.
And Swag on Swayze is on Saturdays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the closing of the park, I think, well, my opinion would be that would be on a Sunday anyway, so that, I don't think one would hit the other. You know, and there's a part of me, I mean, that's what's great about discussion. I mean, this in a way is no different than the farmer's market when it first started, or any event that when it first starts. And, you know, maybe in our zeal to make sure we leave this open to many, we may be, you know, not seeing what's right in front of us. And there's a part of me that I think the swag event, as Beth has said, way better than I can say, certainly brings a lot more to the town than just what's going on in the Parkway. So I don't know, I just don't feel real comfortable saying no to this group at this stage of the game. I understand what we're trying to do going forward with groups, but to me, you know, they took a chance on us however many years ago, and they've made a successful event that people like to come down to, so I don't know, maybe we're going about this the wrong way. We're down to like the difference between 1 and, 6 or 5 or 7, and, we're starting to look a little silly. I'll say I feel silly at this point.
Well,
because it wasn't our
I'm not going to
intention.
comment whether I feel silly or
Well,
not. I
because I think we're- I
don't
think
feel
we're-
silly because I
well,
think we
I'm at the
accomplished
floor.
what we were charged for.
I understand what we charge for, but the reality is, I think we're also hurting a situation that is successful, and we're going to upset a lot more people than we're going to make happy in the end. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I don't really know how broke this really was. I understand the procedure we want to get in place, but I think there are unintended consequences going on that we certainly didn't foresee. It's nothing against the job we did, it's a job we were charged to do, but the reality is, I think we're hurting sort of the public relations of the Parkway as well as Swag on Swayze. We just need to rethink that.
I think we did have an issue with what was seasonal. That was one of the big issues.
Which is,
There's only,
Right.
Right.
And I understand, I feel like 6 events for whether you're a resident or a non-resident is enough for somebody to have reserved the Parkway, because I do feel like the Parkway other people have to have a chance to use it. Maybe not this year, maybe there will be open dates, but, maybe subsequent years, I don't know. But to have one person and I guess we won't use monopolizing it, but I just think that, I think 6 events is plenty, though, is what I'm saying, for whether you're a resident or a non-resident. And I might be wrong, but, so what I'm hearing is that we just forget both of them get six, is that correct? Is that what people want to do? Just limit it to 6?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Okay.
I could be okay with that. I want to think about this because we've only, again, and I can only speak for myself, but I've only received one communication from anybody on this. So I don't know that it's a big issue, and I want to be thoughtful and set a good precedent here for what's going to happen going forward. I know that we can always make revisions, but I also think part of this process is to avoid having to talk about it all the time. Because that takes a lot of time and energy and capacity, which we shouldn't, we should create something that works in perpetuity, which I think the permitting process has worked really well. Obviously, we're working some kinks out still here and there, but I think by huge measure, it's worked really well to send it over to Parks and Rec. I'm thinking about the 6 events per year. I'm with our chairwoman, Corson, and think that that's plenty. And I could be convinced because I also think that there is a sentiment. We certainly saw a citizens petition passed in 2008 about how we can encourage the sort of homegrown local stuff that comes up here, and how we need to do that. And in my view, we've done that here with the fee structure. So we've given, a slight preference to Exeter taxpayers, businesses, residents, which I think is appropriate. So, I'm okay. I'm fine if we just say 6 events per year, and that's it.
And then we do the nonprofit 100 and profit 150. Is that correct?
And the residents get the extra month.
The 30 days.
Right.
the 30
Right, which seems like plenty of preference. It's fine with me.
Shall we make a motion and make this happen?
Do the,
Well, 'cause we have-
when we
it's
talk
just-
fees, don't we have to have a public hearing for that?
Yeah.
Yes, normally you're amending the current schedule that's in place, so we could write it up and try to have it for your next meeting. The way you've drawn it up here, that's what
Okay,
you would do.
let's do that.
Just the fee part of it, the
The
occurrences.
hearing's only for the fee.
Right, so you could,
But we'll
we can-
add in the other details as well that
Okay.
we talked about.
If you feel like you want to put a motion together for these smaller, the other issues, we could do that if you wanted to do that.
Well, at least
I don't-
the frequency, we could certainly make a motion
Then we don't
on
have
the
to discuss
frequency.
it next time?
Yes. Then it's just.
Well,
then
we
it's just fees.
could.
Well, then you might
Yeah,
want to talk
but-
about the other fees.
Right,
So-
exactly, yeah, we don't have to discuss that next time. We'll, before you do that, we'll,
I just have a question.
yes,
And you've grandfathered in the farmer's market. Is there any harm with grandfathering in swag at this point? You
I'm
don't
not
know.
ready to do that.
no, we don't,
Yes,
we don't, yeah.
there is a problem with that.
Yeah, we don't, we have had this discussion all along when we grant any of these property use fees and procedures, and we've talked about grandfathering. Now, grandfathering means that it has had to have been here at least 5 to 6 years.
There are two Parkway
Okay.
events, the Egg Hunt, which is Parks and Rec, and the Fireworks, American Independence Festival, that are on the grandfathered list that was a prior
Much,
approval by the
much
board.
like
Okay.
what we have in the town hall, we have the holiday open house, Festival of Trees. I don't know what else we have, but I know that it was like an act of Congress for us
Okay, no, just
to
a
do
question.
the
Just a question.
grandfathering.
Listening to,
Yeah, no,
All the
we
conversation and all.
definitely have had the discussion.
okay,
And there would be a lot of other events that would have to be that way too.
okay, all right.
Okay, so, Anne, if you want to make those motions for the non-fee schedules, and then we can do the fee schedule at a public hearing next, on the 2nd.
So where does this actually go on this form? It's gonna say
Yeah.
that we're gonna set the number of events for a specific vendor to be no more than 6, is that?
I'm sure that Russ can,
Draft this thing.
figure it out. It would be under, let's look at, it would be up above, I would suspect, where, these open hour, and it would be somewhere along there, in there.
So a lot like we did with the facility fee schedule, we'll add the provisions that speak to what you've been discussing to the Swayze table.
Okay, I just wanted to make the motion correctly, that's.
Yep.
Am I saying it right? That
I think we have another person that's.
Yeah, that's right. I want to talk about regular fees,
Yeah,
town facility
this
fees.
was-
So my motion is motion to set the number of events for Swayze Parkway. Now, this is where I need to be specific, whether it's,
For single user.
Excuse me.
yeah, I just want to get,
Just because I'm trying to help with the motion.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
Interrupting you.
I'm wide open to it.
Are we also including town hall in this? We're not talking fees.
Right.
We're talking nonprofit, profit, resident, non-resident, and a cap.
I think not. I think you want me to do this
I
motion
thought we
specific to
just said we
Parkway.
were going to do Swayze and town hall and not,
I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
those are the two facilities that I would like to cap.
I agree with you.
I
And
agree.
fees we discuss,
All right,
Oh, I
because
agree
the
with that.
fees for town hall will be different naturally.
Right.
Right,
right.
Okay.
okay, yeah. But the motion I was
we
gonna
can
make was
add
just
that
about the
into
Parkway.
Any of those, both of those at the same time, couldn't we?
Swayze and town.
Yeah, can't
town
you
hall?
just do it both at the same time?
Yes.
Why not?
Okay.
So you want to wait to have the discussion about the town hall then? Because I think there's someone that wants to speak about.
No, it's not
facilities.
about the town hall.
But it's about something that isn't Swayze Parkway.
No, it's the senior center.
Okay.
Okay, so you're,
What would you like me to do?
I think you could make a motion, to, that part of the rules
Set the
for the
number.
use of Swayze Parkway and the town hall, that we limit the,
Number of events
number of events, yep.
per vendor to be no more than 6 per season. Now,
Right.
the only reason the season doesn't necessarily work for the town hall is that season is 12 months. So that's the only
Right.
reason why I don't think we can commingle.
Okay, could do two motions.
Okay. All right, the first motion will be for the motion to set the number of events for the Swayze Parkway for one vendor to be no more than 6 per season to be defined as
I thought it was a year.
April.
Yeah, I thought it was a year.
Swayze?
Just say a year because it could be winter
Okay,
time.
fine with me. That's fine with me.
That would
Somebody
be,
could do
All right.
Winterfest
so,
again.
yeah, that's
Motion
true.
to set.
I didn't
the-
mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
You talked about season a
Everyone's getting
lot
season.
last time we had this conversation, what that is.
What do we-
Yeah, let's get
And
rid
that,
of
I
seasonal.
actually had that column disappearing in the conversation, length of event, and that included seasonal, and that's actually to be stricken out.
Right.
Okay.
Is my
Yes.
understanding.
Yeah, we're going to
Correct.
do that.
Am I not looking at what we were proposing?
So you can do
So
it for
let's-
both in that
Okay, so-
instance. and
Okay.
then that he can incorporate it into both
Let's see.
because it's for a year.
All right. So the motion is to set the number of events for the Swayze Parkway and for the town hall to be at no more than 6 events per calendar year,
Right.
Per user.
per user. I said per vendor originally. Didn't I throw per vendor in there first? The number of events for Swayze Parkway and the town hall per vendor.
Organization,
Or
we have it
organization.
written organization. It says resident organization or non-resident organization. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we're not making a distinction on that anyway.
so just organization.
Organization to be no more than 6 events per calendar year.
Do you, I hear a second.
Or Joanna, do you have,
I don't think we're done with the motion.
I just want to make sure you have it right.
Didn't get all the-
Okay,
I've said it like 6 different ways. I want to make sure Joanna got it.
Do you want me to read it back to them?
Yeah.
Sure, that'd be great.
Mr. moved to set the number of events for Swayze Parkway and the town hall for one organization to be no more than 6 per calendar year.
We need to put something in about residents getting that window, though.
Oh, okay, that's a
well, we
separate
can,
thing.
that can be
Okay.
a separate motion.
Um,
Because we don't we already have it in the town hall?
Yes.
is that in the policy?
Is that in the Swayze policy? Because that's something we talked about. We
Yeah,
talked
we
about
should-
that with Greg.
I don't think the
Listen,
Swayze
so I don't
policy
think
has
that's in there.
that.
All right, so yeah, but you're right. That needs to be in
We
there.
need to,
Yeah, if you're doing it for both the town hall and Swayze at the same time.
We have it in
All right, so where do I want to?
one.
You said it beautifully. Just now I just want to figure out where to add.
Right, that was added to the policy last July when the board took up the issue of the property use policy and had several changes recommended by Parks and Rec, and that was one of them, the
So that-
30 days.
So you're saying that's already in for the town hall, but not for.
I don't think it would hurt to include.
Is it in the
No, I
Parkway,
don't mind.
Russ?
I don't mind. I don't mind putting it in, it's belt and suspenders if we put them both. in
Yeah.
there. Okay, and the,
So it's under priority, and it says resident organization, meaning based in Exeter and serving primarily Exeter residents, will be allowed to submit an application for use 12 months in advance of a proposed date of use. Non-resident organizations, meaning the organization is not based in Exeter, will be allowed to apply for use 11 months in advance of a proposed date of use. That's the 30-day
okay,
provision.
Okay. So that's
that's a lot
taken
of
care of.
words, yeah.
So we don't have to, but we have to add that to Swayze or no? That's just for overall.
We'll add it to the Swayze rules, if you will.
Okay.
Or the, like I said, the provisions that go under the fee table, we'll note it there.
Do we need a motion for that? To add it, or? We probably
It
need.
can't hurt to have it in the
Right.
motion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Might as
But-
well.
There's
We
no
have
there's no
a-
downside to
But
it.
I think the motion that we have, we can separate these two things out, so why don't we?
Okay, that's
Because
fine,
these
that's fine,
two
keep it
are
clean.
for both the town hall and the Swayze Parkway, so does anybody want to second the motion that was as read by Joanna Bartel?
I'll second it.
Okay,
I have a question and a comment.
Yes,
if I may.
please.
The question is, are we immediately going to have a motion before I vote on this? Are we going to immediately have a motion that's going to take up the 30-day
That's what I'm gonna do, if I can say it right, yeah.
I would like to, yes.
Okay,
I
okay.
think we're all in agreement on it. It's just, because this is for both, where the town hall already has
understand,
the provision, so.
But before I vote on this, I would just want to make
Oh,
sure we're
okay.
having a
Sure.
motion immediately
Sure.
thereafter.
Sure.
But if there's a way to incorporate it in the one, I'm okay with that.
So am I.
So I would probably, I'd actually feel
Okay.
better about that, so that way it's
Would
all
you like-
in one.
I just
It's just that Russ wrote, he has these words really well done, better than I
Well,
have, so
in
that's
the-
why I want.
In the motion, we can reference what we've already done, so.
It's in the policy for use of a town facility or park.
See, so it already says park, so it's already in there then.
Right.
It's already in the park because it says it in the policy and it says under the. is
Right,
that correct?
and it does say for Swayze Parkways, please see additional rules and regulations attached to the application, which reference the other set of rules for Swayze, so.
it's already in there.
It is, I mean,
It is.
the way I
it's
read
already
this
on
is
there.
it's already incorporated
Yep.
in there. We don't have Parks and Rec to ask them the question tonight, but I can confirm that with them, that they're utilizing, and maybe someone knows, but they're using that 30-day provision already in their permitting.
They should be because it's obviously we added that to it.
But we could also say just here, and we will adhere to the policy of, I mean, I'm
Sure,
saying 30
whatever.
days.
Advantage.
Advantage
I'm
is a
sorry, I
better
didn't-
word. I'm trying to just get that in there somehow, in this motion. That we would, that,
So just following the 30-day provision
number?
in the policy for use of a town facility or park.
yeah, is there like a reference number to that?
Like 4.0.2.1 or something. Yeah, it's 9 point.
Section 5, it looks like 7.0 subsection 5,
7.0 subsection 5
right,
And what does that say?
of the what, of the,
of the policy for use of a town facility or park.
And that includes Swayze Park?
It includes
Well,
all parks.
Because sometimes we don't include Swayze
Yes.
Parks and Parks. I just want to
I
make
know,
sure.
I know.
Yes, it is. It does include Swayze Parkway.
But it's called.
wow.
See if that's the chair.
No, it says for
ahead.
Swayze Parkway, please see additional rules and regulations
Which is
attached
here,
to
and
the
it's not in
application.
here.
Those are the additional rules.
Additional,
Yeah,
not
rather just,
new
In addition to
rules.
what's here.
Is Dwayne.
Well, again, my understanding is when we passed that in July, that was part of the Swayze Parkway rules.
Right.
The additional rules is separate.
Yeah, the tent pegs and all that.
Correct,
Yeah.
the tent pegs and all that stuff. So
Yeah, that's just,
that's my understanding.
that's unique to the parkway.
Correct.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
So I, you know, I mean, I don't think you need to add it
no, I don't
to your
know.
motion, but I
Right,
just wanted
that's
to.
my
that was my
understanding. But if you want to
understanding
reiterate that, that's fine, whatever you want to do.
I'd like to reiterate it, but I'd like to reiterate it cleanly.
Okay, so go for it. So would you like to amend your motion,
I don't think we have to.
I don't think I have to amend it so much as I just need to add, I want to say it correctly, that they're basically, the way it's written is that they get a 30-day,
Residents,
residents get a 30.
resident organizations.
Resident organizations, let me get this right, get a 30-day, what are the words? Advantage, I don't mean, I'm,
Scheduling,
all right,
Application
Scheduling.
period, right?
yes, application.
30-day thank you, 30-day application period. 30-day advance application period?
Yep.
Okay, so. I'm just trying to figure out where to put it. Do you mind reading that back to me one more time, Joanna? I can figure out where to
Just
put
the
it.
last piece or the whole motion?
Just the motion.
Mr. Been moved to set the number of events for Swayze Parkway and the town hall for one organization to be no more than 6 per calendar year.
Okay, then I was to say, and the residents will receive a 30-day advance application period for all bookings of the
Permit requests.
Permanent requests.
You don't want to reference the section. Okay,
Yeah, I'd rather.
It's already in there.
Is that,
Okay.
do I get that?
yep,
Second.
Does that work? Does that work?
that's fine. All those in favor?
Aye.
One
Oh,
last time.
sorry.
Oops.
We actually had a motion on the floor So
Yeah.
you need to withdraw your first motion.
Okay.
And second, or my second, before doing this.
I will withdraw my first motion.
And I will withdraw my second.
Okay, and we have this, the second motion, which is you did and Molly seconded. So would you like to vote on that? Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. So we will move along. We will have the fees for next time. And we do have some other, sub things to talk about, per the memorandum from from Greg Bison. And I understand there's a gentleman here that would like to speak about, fees. So we'll do that. So if you'd like to speak, come on up, introduce yourself. Are you a resident of Exeter?
I am not.
Okay, is everybody okay with, your name is
Craig Solomon.
Solomon, is everybody okay with
Yes.
Mr. Solomon speaking? Go right ahead.
All right. Madam Chairperson, members of the board, as I said, my name is Craig Solomon, and I am the treasurer of an AA group that has been meeting at the Senior Citizen Center at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoons for over 30 years. And I say that from personal experience because I've been sober 31 years and I've been going to that meeting.
Congratulations.
And I was chagrined when I was contacted by the rec department that we owed some back rent. And frankly, the amount we owed was more than we had in the treasury. And I talked with Mr. Dean, who explained to me that the board had tried to be fair in setting the rent $20 per week, and that they wanted to treat all nonprofit groups equally. And so with that background, I went back and talked to the group, and they still wanted me to approach the board about an adjustment in our rent. And I think there are three things that I'd like to bring to your attention. I'll list them and then go into each in a little more detail. The first is that an AA group is not your typical nonprofit organization for several reasons that I will get into. The second is a very practical one. I've been the treasurer of this group for about a year and a half, and frankly, after we get our money in and pay our other expenses, we don't have that much left over. And thirdly, I appreciate not only from your perspective, but from mine, having been a select board member in my community, the duty to the taxpayers to make sure that, not that we're making a big profit, but that we're at least covering expenses. So I did a little bit of very rough math, which will be my third point. So the first point is, one of the basic tenets of AA is that we're self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And what that means is, even though we're a nonprofit organization, we don't have a bake sale. We don't have a Christmas gala. We survive on the money that people put in the basket at each meeting. And from those contributions, we pay the rent, we buy coffee and supplies, we buy literature to give to newcomers, we don't charge them for it. And we support AA on the international, national, state, and district level. We make a contribution, and those contributions are entirely voluntarily based on how much money we have. When somebody comes into that meeting, we don't require them to pay anything. A lot of times we have somebody who has just lost a house, lost a job, just got out of jail, just got out of rehab. They don't have any money. Most people put in $1, some people put in $2, and some people put in nothing. And they come for the coffee and the donuts. In my experience, and this is personal, is that AA, not only saves lives in the literal sense, But many people are able to become better parents, better spouses, better citizens. And that's the real gift. And, you know, if you consider it from the point of view of the town, you know, what's it worth to the town to have one less drunk driver on the street? Or one child getting to school on time because his parents were up? And that's the kind of real world impact we have. My second point is we can't afford it, and I won't beat a dead horse, but take last week, for example. We collected $27, and we had, our coffee maker gave me an invoice for, or a receipt rather, from Hannaford for $16 for coffee and creamer and sugar. The other refreshments last week were donated. So, simple math, we didn't have $20 left over. Some weeks we do, I'll be honest with you, but most weeks we don't. And then my final point is the rough math that I did. Based on some pacing that we did last Sunday, it appears that the Senior Citizen Center is about 4,500 square feet, which is roughly twice the size of my house. So I figured out how much it cost me per hour to heat my house and multiplied it by 2 and got $3.21. And then I did the same math for the electricity and got $1.25. So a total of about $4.50. Now, I understand that you have to plow the lot, and if there's a light bulb out, somebody's got to go change it. So these numbers are not exact. But I think that in fairness to the taxpayers and to our AA group, if we were to get a rent abatement to $10 a week, that's something we could handle, and we'd be most appreciative. I'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, could I
Yeah.
just weigh in on this?
Yep.
I wanted to let the board know before you begin addressing that Mr. Solomon contacted my office probably a few times. We did have a conversation with him. The senior center, I didn't call it rent, I called it the per use fee, which is the $10, I believe, up to 2 hours of use that he would be subject to, his group. We have 3 AA groups, one on Friday, one on Saturday. They have both paid up. They are, as I understand it, they are current with what they owe. In researching this a little bit, we found that there were probably 14, 15 districts statewide, and probably 98% of those meetings are in churches or facilities other than public facilities. And I guess the final point I'd make is that, and I did explain this to Mr. Solomon, that by virtue of this fee of $10 per hour, we're $10 per 2-hour block at the senior center. We're certainly not trying to gouge anybody with that. He mentioned the utilities at $4.50 for the window. I'm not sure if it was an hour or 2 hours, but keep in mind too that when we adopted these fees, and again, I think the board actually lowered the senior center fee at the time you adopted it. We proposed it at 20 and you went to 10 on it, which we've been doing.
That solves the problem.
The administrative part is, of course, issuing the permit, making sure the facility is available, having to clean it, and so forth. So there's certainly more than the amount that's being suggested here. So I just wanted to point those things out before you continue the conversation. And I did ask if there were alternate venues available, and I respect the fact that the organization exists and certainly appreciate the work that they do, but I just wanted to make sure that the board fully understood the particulars here.
Well, if I may, if in fact the fee is $10 for a 2-hour block, that's exactly what I'm requesting. We've been told it's $20. And the time we're in there, meeting starts at 2 and gets over at 3:15. The coffee maker is there a little bit earlier, and we do clean up afterwards. So we're out of there by 3:30. We shut the lights off, make sure the floor is swept, the trash is out. If the bathroom needs to be cleaned, we do that. We put our stuff away. So 2 hours is, we're maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes to make sure the coffee is going. But if it's $10, if that's the fee, we don't have an issue. But Parks and Recreation has told us it's 20.
What is the fee?
I'm looking at the table. The table I'm looking at says 10 for an Exeter-based not-for-profit. Are you an Exeter-based not-for-profit?
Well, that's the issue. AA is not organized that way. You know, each individual group is, you know, we select a treasurer and a secretary. And we don't, most groups don't have bylaws. I can tell you that probably the majority of the people that attend that meeting are Exeter residents. But, you know, I signed the application. I said, you know, I
And you're
live in
from-
Northampton.
Right.
In our packet, it says the senior center is 20.
Amended August of 2019.
Are we looking at the wrong thing?
I don't remember
I think
having-
it was amended. That's what they told us, and that's what generated my
So
concern.
is the fee for them 20 because he's signing the application then?
If it was amended in August of 2019, it could be 20 then. I'll have to
That's
look
what's
at
in the
that.
packet.
That's what's in the packet.
I'll have to look at that. I apologize.
It's okay. So it's 10.
Sir, what's the past due bill that you have?
I believe it's 440. I've got 220 in the treasury that, or 200.
I was just curious. Okay.
Which
thank
is
you.
our prudent reserve, so it would wipe that out, and we'd still have a balance.
Actually, Madam Chair, I'm now recalling that Parks and Rec came to the board in August and asked you to amend that specific fee for the
So-
senior center and increase it when we had our last go-round of adjusting these fees. And they had rationale for it, which was the issues with the building use.
You can look it up. So that was, probably have most of the packets in here.
The only other thing that I didn't mention, if I may, is that the three AA groups that were referenced share the insurance bill. And so we've made that contribution as well.
Let me just look at, when was that amended? Did you say August?
August
It
2019.
says here, right, August 12th of 2019.
Okay, well, this is why we have these, right? So that we can look these August 12th. Okay, so it would be in the 26th meeting. Let's see. August 12th. I'm just looking at, looking this up.
We can look at old packets too.
Right, that's what I'm looking at,
It must have been January 7th of 19 when it was lower than if we amended it in August.
no, I don't see specifically us saying what it was. I don't see that. But yeah, if somebody has the packet, it might just say it.
August 12th. Here is, no. It doesn't go back far enough
Oh,
on the website.
oh, I have it in front of me, but. I don't know if we specifically had a fee.
I hear the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Is that
I
what you
have,
just
I have
looked
the
at?
meeting minutes in front of me,
Yeah.
but these were policy updates. We didn't have we would have to have had a public hearing to do that, because that was be a fee. Let me see.
It's listed on the agenda. It says public hearing, facility and Swayze Parkway fees.
Okay. Well, and that's the 12th, not the 19th.
Correct.
and they did, yes, I see, I show it here, the $20 that we added to that. Well, I mean, so that is in fact what it is.
So
I
it
just
is
can't
20.
find it, but yeah, I show it here that we did discuss this. Anybody would like to discuss that?
Well,
So,
One-
I'm sorry, excuse me. I just found it. The motion, Ms. Gilman moved to accept the facility and Swayze Parkway fees as amended.
Okay. Thanks. I was looking for a
Ms.
specific
Cowan
number.
seconded, Ms. Herman voted nay. The motion passed 4-1.
Well, I knew I voted no, for the record. Not in favor of it.
No, my question is, one of the things that we're trying to do is not have to compare one organization to another. And I know that AA is really very unique, but our question is, where do we stop considering things unique?
Right.
So that's the problem I have is, I don't know what to do about it because I would love to reduce your fee, but I don't know that I can.
Well, if the chair would allow me to respond, I think I could.
Fine, go ahead.
As I explained, what makes us unique is that one of our principles is that we do not go outside to raise funds. You know, most nonprofits are nonprofit because they go out and they raise funds and then they put it to their particular use, but they take contributions from outside. You know, I've been a trustee of Union Chapel in Northampton. I've been on the board of directors of the Hampton Chamber of Commerce, you know, and we raise money for those things. Not just from our members, but from outside. We apply for grants, and we don't do that in AA. So I appreciate, you know, not wanting to split too many hairs, but this is probably not splitting a hair. This is a pretty wide chasm.
I mean, I understand that, but there are two other AA groups that seem to be fine with the $20.
They generally get more people than we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that Saturday night meeting will often approach 100 people.
Mm.
If we get 35, we're having a good day.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, this is a tough one, so I don't know what.
Are your AA groups connected? Can you share costs?
Not directly each AA group is responsible, although, as I said, we do share the cost of the insurance. The town, you know, we all contribute equally to that.
Because, I mean, I have a huge amount of respect for the work that you do and the respect that, you know, and I'm happy that we live in a community where we have access to AA groups in buildings that are not churches, because I'm sure that can be an issue for people. And so how do we make sure that we are covering the cost and implementing the policy in a fair way without preventing people who need this service from getting what they need? And I mean, I would, you know, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but it would seem to me like if the Saturday groups get 100 people, you know, and everybody puts $1 in, they can sort of offset the people. I mean, I'm just wondering if that's a way to do it, especially since you share the insurance rider, to sort of, you know, like, okay, we know that the rent for this week is going to be $60. So $60 just goes to the rec department from whatever pool of money, and then it's divided. I don't know. I mean,
I agree, and it's what makes this so difficult, you know, recognizing the good work that you do and the service that you're providing is that, I guess, I think I'm agreeing with you. I can't reconcile that there's two other groups that are able to cover the 20, And, you know, I mean, I guess it would be an easier decision if it was just one, but I'd like to also take a step back and get a reminder from Greg and Melissa why they needed the extra $10, because, you know, it may be as simple as reassessing the $10, but I can't, you know, I need to find, there was obviously a reason we as a board did this, so.
I know, and maybe it is doing something like, okay, if you want the senior center on a Sunday, it's $10. So if, you know, because I also don't want to make it prohibitive for you to be there. I think that I will speak for myself, and also the sentiment that I'm seeing from the board is we will make this happen. Let's just figure out how we're going to do it.
Sure.
So that we're not singling out your group. Rather, we're making it a policy that can work across.
I'm finding the answer in the recreation building itself is $20 for up to a 2-hour use. And the senior center was $10 originally, and then it was recommended to be 20. And I think, if I recall correctly, what Parks and Rec was saying is that they didn't want a disparity between those two fees, and they were concerned about people going over to the senior center, which in their minds is actually a better facility than the building at 32 Court Street for a variety of reasons. So that was actually, it's not in total detail in the minutes, but that's what I recommend. What I recollect from that conversation, the video would probably show that. And I think that that's what generated the fee. Again, $20, this is a weekly use. I mean, we're talking about 52 uses a year, and just the cost of administering that, I'm sure, is equitable in terms of the $20 for 2 hours of use.
But sir, can you answer Vice Chair Cowan's question about integrating with the other two with the?
I don't want to say it's impossible, because as I explained, we're kind of loosely organized, and that's the whole point. We're supposed to be.
Right.
I've never heard of something like that. I don't mean to say it can't be done. And, you know, whatever solution you're considering, if Mr. Dean has my contact information, you know, I'm certainly willing to cooperate. I just want to, you know, you talked earlier about some events being grandfathered, and I know that meeting's been there for at least 31 years. So, you know, we're trying to just keep it going because people know it's there. You know, so I'm willing to, you know, reach out to other people and do whatever I can to help. Maybe for you to talk with the Parks and Recreation and try to get a real handle on the number. You know, because as I say, we do clean up after ourselves, and, you know, and it's 2 hours right around there. And there's a lot of people that take advantage of it. I mean, there's an Exeter resident who comes in a motorized wheelchair, rain or shine, he's there. And we've got a woman who's been coming who, I don't know what her medical condition is, but she's in a wheelchair, and just, you know, so, and we do get a lot of newcomers there too. So it's a meeting that reaches out to a lot of people.
Sure.
I don't want to, I'll end with this. Years ago, I appeared in front of a judge, and he asked me if I had anything else. And I said, well, I don't want to beat a dead horse. And he took his little half glasses and said, so don't, so I won't.
Okay, we can't do anything about changing any fees without a public hearing. We can discuss them, but, and we also kind of would need to talk to Greg and Melissa. I think the Sunday 10 o'clock you know, if there's a $10 on a Sunday, but I don't, you know.
Weekends half price?
Weekends half price, no.
Not in high demand.
Yeah. So we'll have to, and I know there's one other, they have written here, in their memo that we have a couple of organizations decide not to rent a town facility due to the cost of the fees. The town needs to keep the fees consistent and they will follow the lead on the select board recommendation. So, I know other towns charge fees too. Do they waive fees too? I don't know. I've only done this here, so,
Remember, but also, just to point out, part of the fee is related to the intensity of use, too.
Right,
If you're using the
exactly.
facility 4 times a year, we're talking about $80. If you're using
Right.
it 52 weeks a year,
right,
that's certainly that's an intensification of the use.
right.
So depending upon the organization's needs, I think that would reflect back on the fee. Doesn't mean the fee's wrong, it just means that there's going to be some differences.
Right. Okay. I don't know if you want to go through each of these points that they've made here and discuss this, and then maybe we can have them here at our next meeting to talk about this.
I think that would be best.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the memo was more for the board's information in terms of what some of the trends have been. I know the big one that I'd probably focus on for you just real quick is the cleaning of the town hall. And that has been a challenge. And I'm sure you'll hear about that when they meet with you, but that for the large scale events, especially, what we just had during the political season.
Oh, yeah,
There were a
they're a mess.
number of different issues that arose from that. I mean, I think fortunately we have that fee and that's part of what it's meant to cover.
Right.
But we had a broken door at the town hall in the front. So there's a real need to purchase a cleaning machine that will actually clean that floor effectively for events.
Yes,
So-
and then chairs, and are there any of these things in a budget item? This, like locks, do we have a budget item for that?
So right now, the recommendation that I was giving to Parks and Rec was to take, for certain smaller maintenance items, to charge it against the building maintenance account, that $10,000 for the town hall. Understanding that we are collecting those fees and it would give it an offset on the revenue side of the ledger. So if we went a little bit over in that single account, we did have money coming into it. But there's no provision for, like, for example, for a revolving fund for facilities. So we don't, for the town hall. I mean, we have a rec revolving fund for recreation facilities, but we don't have one for the town hall. So that's what we're trying to do at this point, is just use that $10,000 line item.
Okay. So I think that if they could, because it would be a much easier practice to not have keys and have some kind of mechanism that when somebody rents something, just like when you go to an Airbnb and that you key in for your time, that you have that. It's a pretty simple thing. So I don't understand why we can't do something like that, especially for something like the town hall, that we don't need to be giving out a whole bunch of keys for different people and then they keep them and they use the town hall, whatever.
Interestingly enough, when Ann and I met with the Greg and Melissa in December, we learned that I think we're the only two in Exeter that don't have a key.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Ann?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I think,
There, but
I don't either. So, yeah, so.
Then you can't be accused of anything.
Right,
Exactly.
so, yeah, so I would
brought
like
that up.
that, I would like, I think that's something for the board to work on to make sure that that happens next year in all the facilities. That would be something that would be good. So, all right, so we'll table this till our public hearing and we will discuss it next time. All right, thank you, thanks. All right, we will then go to regular business for tax abatements, veterans credits, and exemptions. Nico, take it away.
Guess I'm up. Okay. Move to approve a veteran's credit for map 90, lot 18, unit 28 in the amount of $500.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Move to approve a veteran's credit for map 80, lot 6, unit 49 in the amount of $2,500.
And that's a disabilities and a veterans.
Correct.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I move to approve an elderly exemption for map 104, lot 79, unit 420 in the amount of $152,251.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. I move to approve an elderly exemption for map 95, lot 64, unit 193 in the amount of $152,251.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I move to approve disability exemptions in the amount of $125,000 for the following locations: map 104, lot 79, unit 616, and map 95, lot 64, unit 342, respectively.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
And I move to approve an abatement for map 61, lot 22, in the amount of $774.
Second.
All those, all those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
All those,
I move an abatement in the amount of $360.69 for map 64, lot 105, and unit 80.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I move to approve an abatement for map 35, lot 3, unit 7, in the amount of $1,742.92.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve an abatement for map 64, lot 10, in the amount of $2,531.78.
All those,
I'm trying to be quick. I'm jumping right in.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve an abatement for map 85, lot 89, unit 1, in the amount of $537.54.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I move to approve an abatement for map 95, lot 64, unit 193, in the amount of $97.73.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to
I heard
approve an
you.
abatement for map 73, lot 280, in the amount of $144.27.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I move to approve an abatement for map 87, lot 8, unit A20, in the amount of $55.85.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And move to approve an abatement for map 110, lot 2, unit 102, in the amount of $60.82.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have permits and approvals, and we have the letter of support for the Coalition Against Big Trucks. So I know that Julie, you sat in on a meeting with these people, and
Yes.
we do have a sample of a letter, correct, in here?
There is a new trend in shipping trucks that, or maybe it's an old one that's come back.
Right.
But aside from the double trailers that we've seen before, trailer connected to another trailer, they're also upping the weight and the length of a single trailer. Makes turning radius difficult, it's bigger wear and tear on your roadways.
Yeah.
Accident rates are up. They're just plain scary.
Especially, I can just see it happening, like, right around the bandstand would
Yep.
be interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, we don't let them down there now.
Right. But you never know what will happen. So what we're looking for is, Russ, if we could have a letter written, is that correct? Like,
Right, if the board is okay with what's been drafted here, what we'd like to do is send a letter to our delegation, our two senators and our congressman, reflecting our concurrence and concern with this.
Does anybody have any objections? Are you all set? You're fine with that?
Yeah, that's, the group is going state to state, town
Yeah.
to town to really get some weight behind this.
Interesting.
I wouldn't want to be the driver of the thing either. I would
Right,
think
and that's
they'd be
one of the
opposed to
things
it
that they
too.
bring up, actually, is that there's
Get a
several,
sleepy driver and.
several groups of truck drivers that are actually opposed to this as
Oh,
well.
good.
Do not want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'd look for a motion to have Russ send this letter to our Congress, our senators and congressmen.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Next, is the town manager's report.
Okay, just a few things briefly. The town report is at the printer, and we're hoping to have the hard copy by Friday. And I'll keep you posted on a date, but everything was proofed today and looks good on that. And just to recognize, and I'm sure others will as well, just the efforts of all of you and our voting staff, the checklist supervisors and the moderator and everybody who put so much time into the presidential primary that thankfully went off extremely well. And I know the supervisors have been in also since the primary, doing their back end work, which not a lot of people see, but there's a lot of reporting that goes with that process. So did a great job, and everybody is to be congratulated for that. We are updating the vision system right now, so that's going pretty well. Assessing's been battling with it a little bit, but everything seems to be coming along with that, which is good. And I know notice went out, we're changing the flooring in the town offices to reflect more of what's in the bathroom, because it's a little bit, it won't trap particulates under the carpet like this does, which is a real air quality issue for the building. So that is, we've got a contractor delay right now, but we're expecting in the next week or two, we'll have that project underway. And we had a very interesting meeting last week with the Energy Committee, along with the CDFA's Director of the Clean Energy Fund was here, and we were talking about some innovative ways to try to gain some access to those funds to maybe leverage in fossil fuel reduction locally. So we were talking about some different ideas with the Director of CDFA, so that was good. So there'd be more to come on that. And I think that was it, unless there are questions. And tomorrow night is the public hearing on the NIPD's permit at Pease, which Jennifer and I will be there for that.
Okay. Julie?
My report is on state legislation because with the primary and another postponements, I didn't have any committee meetings. Just to fill you in on what happened in today's committee, we talked about licensing dogs and renewing your license for dogs. The gentleman proposed a bill to make town clerks send a certified letter to dog owners who have not received not renewed their license. And the general attitude of the committee was that this is a single town problem and we're not going to change the whole state to do that. Town clerk added cost and time, so. And we already have the choice of how we want to announce that to residents anyway. It's in the RSA and whatever. We had another one that was was poorly written, but ended up really affecting hunters by committing a really wide swath of land around various types of public facilities that was just going to be impossible for some towns to have hunting at all. Whether or not you like that is still to be debated. We just heard the bill today. Like I said, the plastics is going forward. I don't have my list in front of me, so I'm just going to let it go there.
Okay, you go.
The planning board met last Thursday, February 13th. We heard two continued cases, the first of which was the subdivision request from the IS Realty Trust. And the planning board approved the subdivision approval with conditions. The second was the Harbor Street Limited Partnership, and again, the subdivision was approved with conditions. There will not be a planning board meeting at the end of February due to school vacation and the fact that there are no new cases. So
Wow.
Chair Plummer's given us a week off, so. The Sustainability Committee will meet on March 3rd. And I too want to echo Mr. Dean in thanking everybody that participated in the presidential primary election and respectfully request that perhaps the town seriously consider for the next 3 elections this year getting I voted stickers. I think we all heard from the public, and it's not a lot of money and it goes a long way. So if we could think about that.
As long as we can get volunteers to give out the stickers instead of having to hire somebody to sit there and give out the stickers. And maybe we can do that during like a town election.
Did we hire?
But during a presidential election, and you know, it's just so busy that we're busy doing what we have to do. But I think, I mean, it's, you know, I think if people are willing to volunteer in hour increments or a couple hour increments, I think that would be fine. But hiring somebody to do that when the problem is that the town clerk barely had and could get enough people to work the polls. And then she'd have to find one extra person to give out stickers.
I think now that we know that, we can recruit.
Yeah, because I know she was recruiting one of us to work in different various places in the polls, and it was just, you know, she had a hard time just finding enough workers.
We need to help
And
her
I
with
think
that.
I think people need to understand that it is a hard time. Every business in town has hard. A lot of the restaurants cannot find people to work, and I think she's finding that in trying to recruit workers for the polls. And I'd hate to see people waiting in longer lines because we have to give out stickers. You know.
I
Unlikely.
wouldn't worry about that.
Very unlikely.
I have a housing advisory committee update. We met on Friday, and the multifamily home charrette is almost ready, which will be really exciting. And I think that is all my report.
E91 had met, which we pretty much, I talked about that earlier, so pretty much all set there. And also, thanks to everyone for the voting was amazing. I think that was a lot of work by a lot of people. And you're right, I think they were a little shorthanded, but the stickers they've been, every election I've been in for the 6 years, whether it's town or whatever, people have been asking for those. So it's amazing we'll figure out a way to get someone, because it means a lot. They really look forward to them, and the kids, the people, the first time people have voted, it's a big deal. So I
I
hope we can
think
do
there
that.
should be an option. I think we should have a cardboard sticker that you can take a selfie at, because that's more sustainable than a sticker that might
That will
fall
build up
on
the
ground.
line.
Right,
You're
that'll
afraid
build
of.
up.
I know, but you have a couple of them. It's, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not a lot of money.
Volunteer
It's
for
worth it.
that.
yeah, find some volunteers to do that. I think that would be great.
Kids from the school.
All right.
One real quick thing I'd add too is that the library is under construction as well. So if you haven't had a chance to get over there yet, I know Hope is
Yep.
certainly willing to take your call or email, and if you want to tour the general contractors over there working. So it's pretty extensive work happening. They did have a sewer line break there last week, but they've done a temporary fix on it. So things are continuing to move.
And I did see that they're closed, they are closed tomorrow because they had something wrong with the heat.
Yeah.
So they're getting a new HVAC just in time. Because they can't find ways to fix that,
Right.
so.
Right. They're also finding that there are no as-built drawings from 1987 for that building, so,
Great.
which wasn't a tremendous surprise, but
No.
disappointing nonetheless.
I did go in and I did see the remnants of the infamous fireplace that's in there. They had a fireplace and it quickly was.
Library.
Yeah. They quickly, when it opened and they quickly shut it down because somebody like fell and broke their ankle like the first week there, so. But they were dismantling it when I went in, so I was quite excited to see that. So, all right, so correspondence, there, we have the planning board, planning department, all their schedules for submittals to being on their schedules for developers. And is that all we have? Yeah, I guess that's all we have.
Then I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.